presence of a quorum, I would like to call the first meeting of the Acton Select Board to order. It's a joint meeting with the Finance Committee as part of the budget workshop. It's April 6, 2021. The Town of Acton, in response to the coronavirus pandemic, is currently following the guidance from the Acton Board of Health, the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the CDC. The town hall is closed to the public. This meeting will be streamed online on the ActonTV YouTube live channel, and audio will be broadcast live on the radio on WAEM 94.9 FM. To participate remotely from a computer, use the link to join the public meeting, actonma.gov /meeting/BOS, or from a telephone dial 646-876 and enter webinar ID 503-918-785. Telephone users may dial *9 to request to speak. Computer and app users may use the raise the hand feature to request to speak. Christy?
All right. Good evening. It is 6:02 p.m. This open meeting of the Acton Finance Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth and the local state of emergency declared by the Acton Board of Selectmen and Board of Health due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, the Board of Selectmen has suspended all public gatherings, and in accordance with the governor's order, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The governor's order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations and/or board/committee votes of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. Where this meeting is convening by video conference via Zoom app, as posted on the meeting agenda town's website calendar, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker of the agenda if applicable. After they conclude their remarks, I will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Moving to the first item on the agenda, we have 4 sets of minutes for the Finance Committee to approve. These are the minutes of December 8th, 2020, March 2nd, 2021, March 9, 2021, and March 23, 2021. The only changes I have marked are that for the March 2nd minutes, we need to clarify the abbreviation FC to mean free cash, which is what it meant everywhere it was said on there. And for the March minutes, change the phrase that Mr. Benson and Mr. Martin appeared to be something less mystical. Is there a motion to accept those changes and approve the minutes as amended?
Motion to approve as amended.
Second. Wonderful. And this is all 4 of the minutes that we're talking about, correct?
Indeed.
Wonderful. We'll go ahead and take the vote. Mr. Noon.
Aye.
Mike. I believe that was an aye. You're muted, Mike. You're still muted.
Put a thumbs up.
Aye.
Wonderful. Christine.
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
Sahana.
Aye.
Isha.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Adam.
Sorry. Aye.
And Christy, I say aye. Thank you, everyone. We will now move on to the next item agenda, which will be led by Mr. Mangiarotti.
Good evening, everybody, members of the Select Board and Finance Committee. We're very excited to be here this afternoon or early this evening to talk with you about the FY22 budget. This is a budget that was every year is a challenge. This year, I think, proposed and imposed some very unique challenges, and I'm very proud of the way that our team came together and worked to put together a proposal that you've been now reviewing, and we're going to really highlight the details of tonight. So we normally would do this upstairs in the meeting room. Obviously, we're doing this on Zoom to try to make it so that people can see each other. All the attendees, we have about 20 or so department and division heads that are going to be speaking with you tonight. We're going to keep everyone with video off until it's their time to go. And we're not going to use a PowerPoint tonight. It's hard to make connections and see people. And so we're going to focus on just talking to you and giving you a chance to ask each of us any questions that you may have. We're going to follow very closely the budget book that we published on March 1st. This is something that, as I mentioned, we put a lot of effort into putting details in here and data and things like that we're going to walk through. And that will be an easier way, we think, to present to you tonight, so that if you have your book at home or if you have it on your laptop, as we go from one speaker to the next, it's going to follow the order that the budget book presents. So we hope that makes for an effective and productive session with all of you, and we look forward to questions that you have. We'll have questions after each division. And then if there are any, we'll move on to the next one. We did provide in advance answers to several questions that we received from Finance Committee members. We distributed those yesterday to all of you, so hopefully you have those. And if there's any follow-ups, please feel free to bring those up tonight. So the budget that was presented on March 1st is substantially how it appears in the budget book. There is a minor change, which is related to capital. Earlier this spring, actually a few weeks ago, there was a minor change which would modify the total cost, the total impact of the budget. It went from a 2.50 to a 2.56, and that was adding $21,000 for a dog park. That's something that the Board of Selectmen supported, and we discussed at ALG. Just so you know that everything else in here should be as presented. That was the only change from the budget book. So what I'd like to do is just highlight some of the high level things in the budget presentation. We're investing in a lot of priorities that were set by the Board of Selectmen or the Select Board through the policy making and goal setting processes that they do every year. We're investing in diversity and equity resources. We're investing in pedestrian and safety, a lot of sustainability investments. We're going to try to tackle some major infrastructure projects like Kelly's Corner and the Acton Town Center triangle. We're going to try to redo that to a safer layout based on the designs that the public and the boards have supported. We're going to do a lot of tree planting and work on some economic development initiatives to help with our businesses who were struggling before the pandemic and continue to struggle throughout. And we're going to continue to try to find ways to help our business community. So we're excited to talk about all of these programs and operations. There was a capital presentation last week, and hopefully you all had a chance to review the capital projects that we've proposed this year as well. Tonight, we're really going to focus on the operating budget, but we're happy to take any questions you have on capital as well. So, since we have a lot to get through, I do have one programming note. We're going to start with the Citizens Library, and after that, we're going to jump right to the Acton Memorial Library, which I know is not consistent with what I just told you. But after we do that, we're going to go right through the budget book the way it was presented. Danielle Saban, our library director, has something that she needs to attend to, and we thought it'd be good to have the libraries go one after another anyway. So why don't we get started? Matt Murphy, if you could bring Jennifer Friedman into the hot seat, please. We're going to start with the Citizens Library, and that would be found on page 45 of your budget book. And Jennifer, welcome.
Hi, I'm trying to figure out how to get myself on video. Let's see, start video, there we go.
There you are.
There I am. Okay, well, thank you all for inviting me here tonight to do this. I'm excited to be batting leadoff. And my name is Jennifer Friedman. I have been the director of the Citizens Library for 14 years now. We are the little library in town in West Acton Center, and we provide pretty traditional library services, books. We check out all kinds of materials, museum passes. Most recently, we've started our seed library, which has been hugely popular over the past month. People coming in and getting seeds and starting their gardens. It's been exciting to see people back picking things up and all of those. So let's see. The other thing that we do besides circulating materials is that we provide a community space in the heart of West Acton. People come in, use our computers, they use our reading room, they come and bring their children and read to their kids here. So the location and the space of our library is a very big part of what we do and what we provide to the community. Being here in West Acton, we are actually within 1 mile of walking distance to over 1,200 households. And we do see a lot of foot traffic. We see a lot of people who are, doing other things in West Acton who stop in here for a variety of reasons. And that is a large part of our mission and of what we do to provide that community space here in our walkable town village. Turning to page 46, the organization of Citizens Library is very basic. I report to the town manager. I also report to a board of trustees. And under me are my senior workers and substitute librarians. I have a wonderful team of senior workers, volunteers, who come in and cover the desk for me or work with me on various projects. Our full-time equivalency is 0.79. I work 28 hours a week, and there are usually my senior workers and substitute librarians who pick up other hours here and there. And on to my budget. My budget on page 47 is also pretty straightforward. We spend money on books. We spend money on supplies to cover those books and to put labels on those books. This year there is an increase, a fairly substantial increase in our contractual services. And the reason for that increase is that we are in the process of joining the Minuteman network. So we have been talking about doing that for a couple of years now. And this year it was made possible. And we are excited to be able to start bringing Minuteman drop-off and pickup here to West Acton. If there are every other line item on my budget is really pretty much the same. If there are any questions, I would love to answer them.
Starting with questions from the Finance Committee. Does anyone have any? I don't see any. How about members of the Board of Selectmen? Select Board.
Mm-hmm.
Jim, was that your hand up? Okay. I don't think we have any questions for you. Thank you very much.
Nice job, Jennifer. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if we could turn to page 134 and bring Danielle Sabin into the room, please. Thank you, Jennifer. Danielle is the director of the Memorial Library, who has just started this week reintroducing in-person browsing. And I was outside today for a meeting, and a lot of people were coming in and out of there in a safe way. So that's exciting. Hi, Danielle.
Good evening. I'm Danielle Sabin. I'm the director of the Memorial Library. Happy to be coming to you from the Memorial Library tonight. Tell you about all the great things we do. As you all know, we are usually a very busy community center. We did have some closures during the last year due to COVID, but we still continued to get materials to folks. We circulated over 368,000 materials. Most of that was in a curbside pickup service where we averaged about 700 to 800 people coming by every week to pick up materials. And we were still able to hold some virtual programs. So we held, between virtual and in-person programs, we held 363 programs last year. And I'm happy to say that over 15,000 Acton residents have library cards at the library. So that's always an exciting statistic to report, because you guys are here and checking out materials, and I love that. The next page, 135, you can see the breakdown of the organizational chart. We have an FTE of 18, and you can see the breakdown, and it's we do actually have a lot of part-timers working in our 4 different departments of the library. On the following page, 136, we have some nice stats to report to you. The volumes in our collection, currently we have 248,000 materials. That includes print, so that's everything that's in the building with me, as well as our electronic resources, which you can access through the web. And I mentioned the circulation earlier. The number of visits we did have while we were open to the public until March 14th, and then we did reopen for some limited browsing in the fall. We did have 155,000 folks come through the doors during the days we were open. And if I can move on to page 137 of the operating budget. I'm asking for 1.83 increase overall. The part of that is step increases. Salaries are about 80% of our budget. That's our human folks, our big resources that we do offer to the community. Under the materials budget, it's broken down differently than you've seen in the past. We used to have it kind of requested in one lump sum, and now we're going to break it down. Books, non-print materials, which is all those electronic resources, ebooks, downloadable audio, downloadable video, things like that, and then periodicals broken down below that. So I am asking for a slight increase of $5,000 in the non-print materials line. While we were closed due to COVID, we were still able to offer our electronic resources, which was exciting that folks could download materials, have access to more reading, more video, downloadable audio from home. They didn't need to come out if they did not want to come out of their houses. So electronic resources are priced differently than traditional books. So to kind of keep up with this bigger demand, now that folks are using it, they're still using it, even though they might want a mix of print and electronic. So we tend to pay per license for those materials, similar to how we would pay per print copy of a book. I think those are the big things I wanted to highlight. Our membership to the Minuteman Library Network falls under the MIS category, and that's probably that's just a pretty typical category. I asked for a slight increase there to cover just more equipment costs as things like that. Well, does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Majors.
Yeah, it's an easy one. What do you think the most popular subject matter is that has the interest of your subscribers in the past year?
That's tough to answer. I can tell you what it is in the children's room. We see a lot of Garfield comics go out. But for adults, we see, a lot of the top nonfiction books, things that book clubs are reading. And as far as nonfiction materials, it would be a lot of current events, things that people are talking about in the news. And then we always have a lot of folks interested in cooking and crafting projects and things like that.
Good. Thank you.
Jason.
Thank you very much. I have two quick questions. The first is, during this pandemic year, has there been an unusual wear and tear on items, in particular DVD and other media that don't usually get returned through the chute, that are now being returned through the chute? And the corollary question to that is, has there been an unusual wear and tear on the employees with all the running back and forth with getting the books to the curbside drop-off?
Sure. So a lot of the AV materials are packaged in plastic cases. They do okay in the chute, and we do empty the chute pretty regularly. So if someone returned a very large volume, it wouldn't crush things that are underneath it. And if something happens to a case, we do have some spares that we can replace it in order to keep it in good condition. And as far as the staff goes, I mean, the staff has been great. We've had, as some of you, if you're library users, we went through a few different things of making appointments. Now you don't need to make appointments, and they've just kind of been flexible and gone with what's come along. And it's different doing the curbside pickup. We're busy in different ways because we are pulling the materials. We're touching the materials more. We're pulling them from the shelf, putting them on a hold shelf for you. Then you come and we're checking them out, and then we're bringing them out. So you get more staff touches per book. And yeah, I think a lot of us are getting our steps in, definitely.
I appreciate that, especially considering I do think that the library employees are the town employees that most interact with the public. I have one follow-up question, if I may, Madam Chair.
Certainly.
Looking at the circulation numbers, looks like there's been a steady decrease with the exception of fiscal year 19. Obviously, fiscal year 20 is an outlier. I think that data should be thrown out. Do you feel that the decrease in circulation has been directly picked up by the digital online subscriptions? And in the future, should we expect to see a change in the allocation between the books and the digital material budgeting?
So besides fiscal 20, throughout the whole state, we did have seen a little slight decrease in circulation across most libraries in the state. I think we've seen some correlation between folks are using more digital, so maybe they're using less print, but it's never as big as you think. It's just never as big as you think it'll be. So I think that moving forward, we kind of plan sometimes when things are kind of tough in the economy, we see libraries get more usage because folks can come and get lots of things for information, but also you can have some recreational reading and movies and things like that. So I do think we will probably continue to put more money into electronic resources, and I'll be figuring out what the proper way to allocate those resources each year, kind of looking at the circulation each year.
Thank you very much.
Steve.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just wondering how many of the part-time positions are benefited or work more than 19 or 20 hours a week?
So I could, I don't have that written out. We have about,
it's okay, you can get
we have the FTE of 18, and when all the positions are filled, that would be a little over 30 people. So most of those folks who are part-timers are working well under a 20-hour-a-week benefit position.
All right, thank you.
Any select board members? Jim?
I read that libraries have been squeezed by Amazon, both in terms of the availability of books and the price of books. And I was wondering if that's been an issue at the Memorial Library.
Well, I would say one thing we do find challenging with Amazon is they have an audio book service. I think it's called Audible, and they don't sell to libraries. So sometimes we get requests, can you purchase this? I can see it's available. And it's particularly in the audiobook area, and we're not able to get it. Or we sometimes can get titles, but I think Amazon is, when they particularly publish something, that's when it's tricky. If it's published by one of the three main big old publishers, that's when it's usually easier for us to get the downloading. In some ways, though, Amazon makes things easy for people to look up. So sometimes it might make it easier to put in requests at the library. I saw it was on Amazon. I was wondering if the library has it before I make that purchase.
Thanks, that's it.
How does the licensing for electronic books work relative to a paper book? You buy a paper book, you have it there, as many people can read it as possible before it falls apart, but that doesn't happen with an ebook.
So there's there's typically two major models for the ebooks, and I'll talk about both. The one is called pay-per-use. So we subscribe to a vendor that has access to a certain number of titles, and we pay every time someone checks that book out. So that means 3 people could check it out this week and nobody next week, and then 10 people the following week, and we would pay for each of those uses. This second model that we find with a lot of ebooks is very similar to how we would purchase. Let's say we purchase 4 copies of a bestseller. Only 4 people can have that title out at once. So if we have to purchase 4 licenses, so if we only have 1 license, then only 1 person can read that electronically at once. So I think that we're kind of, both models seem to be here to stay for now, and they both have their drawbacks and their benefits. We get a little more choice in the buying per license, but it's more expensive. You'll see a license for an ebook might be $60 to $70, but an adult hardcover fiction book might be $20 to $25. So very, very big difference. And some publishers, they only let you use the ebook license 26 times, because they've figured if a library circulates a book for 2 weeks, a year, that would give you 26 uses. But with some books, we get 100 uses. It depends a lot on what the wear and tear is of the book. So it's I think that we're kind of a little bit at the mercy of what the publishers want to do, and kind of seeing that we still, again, just having demand for still both the print and the electronic. We're trying to maintain the balance for both.
Thank you. I believe that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job, Danielle. So our next presenter will be Sharon Mercurio, the Director for the Council on Aging. Sharon, the budget for the Council on Aging starts on page 48 in the budget book. And Sharon, welcome to the program.
Hi. Sorry about that. I got bumped off. So I'm Sharon Mercurio. I'm the Council on Aging Director. I've been Director for Acton for 11 years now. The Director position is the only 40-hour-a-week COA position. My other staff, I have a Senior Services Coordinator. She's 34 hours for the COA and 6 hours for the VSO. A Program Manager, that's 35 hours a week. An Office Manager, that's 30 hours a week. A Staff Assistant, that's 19 hours a week. A Fitness Instructor, that's 8.3 hours a week on average. And then an activity assistant that's funded entirely from a grant. She's 15 hours a week, so a total of 4.53 FTEs. Acton senior population is now over 5,300, which is amazing. And last fiscal year, we provided services to over 38% of Acton's population. The COA is mostly known for the senior center and the incredible programs, classes, lectures, and meals that we serve. But it's more than that. To so many of our folks, it really is a home away from home. It's someplace where they can connect to people their own age that are going through the same phase of life and understand what they're going through. Another big part of what we do at the COA is social services. You know, I think we're looked at mostly as recreation, but social service is a huge piece of what we do. And it's that recreation that's a wonderful way of opening the door for people. You know, they get comfortable with us, build a rapport with us, and then are able to share with us if there's an issue or problem or need that they have. We help people with fuel, food assistance, housing application, information referrals, connect them to appropriate services. We have different legal programs to assist seniors free of charge. We have our tax returns, and then a SHINE program that helps them figure out their way through Medicare, which is just ridiculous. Last March, you know, the pandemic hit, and our first concern was the seniors. Not only were they were the ones getting hit the hardest and more at risk physically to this, but then also the mental health issues were a concern as well. You know, these people that relied on their second family now were being isolated. So we really jumped into action. Literally hours before the stay-at-home order was in place, we had instructors in taping programs for Acton TV. Acton TV has been fabulous during this. We were able to replicate a normal day at the senior center on Acton TV so they could still participate in their exercise classes and whatnot. The staff started calling the most vulnerable seniors on our list, just checking in with them, seeing how often they'd like phone calls. Our IT department was fabulous and got us hooked up really quickly. So they would have a recognizable number. So initially staff were calling from their home phones, and not everybody was picking up because we did such a great job of telling them not to pick up strange phone numbers. But IT set us up so it looked like we were making phone calls from the town's phone service. So that worked out really well. So we were also trying to reach folks through technology. So we were updating our website quite frequently. We started a Facebook page. But Acton TV, again, has been a great resource because I think this age of technology, that's how most of the information was coming out. And you remember initially it was fast and furious. So we were doing both, trying to use Acton's radio station and Acton TV. John does a weekly program now. We've been doing it for over a year, Java with John. We have the nursing director in, so we give a public health update. He gives a town update, and we're able to keep people informed that may not be connected to technology. But during this, we have had folks that are stepping up. Our Zoom classes are growing each week. We're doing book clubs and support groups and lectures and musical programs. A lot of them are also being taped and shown as well on Acton TV. My budget for next fiscal year shows a 1.99% increase. The line items that are showing the increase, one is repairs for equipment and servicing equipment. We have this fabulous commercial kitchen, so we want to keep those pieces of equipment well maintained. Another increase is dues and membership. So all councils on aging belong to Mass Councils on Aging, and our membership dues are figured out by the census numbers. So we're still going with 2010 census numbers. So I foresee that changing probably in the next year. So I wanted to put a little bit of a padding in for that. And then office supplies. We were getting our paper from the town hall, but now it's just easier to have it coming out of our budget and delivered directly to the Human Services building. And then a line item that at this time I've removed, was the assessment, the annual assessment to Minuteman Senior Services. There's been talk that they may be doing away with that. So I felt I could use the money better elsewhere in my budget. And then what I usually do each year too is, if the assessment stays on and I have some saving and line items, then if I'm able to support Minuteman at that time, I will put some of that money towards their annual assessment for us. I think that's all I have. Any questions for me?
Starting with the Finance Committee, any questions? How about Select Board members? Dean?
Thank you. Question, the lease for your existing building, whose budget does that lie in?
The town manager's budget.
Okay. And you've been in there, what, about 4 years now?
Correct.
And how many years we got left to run in the first lease?
We have 10 years.
10 years, okay. I know it's hard to figure things out after this past year when you've been closed, but do you foresee any need for any changes for the facility, for the parking, long term, after the first lease runs out? Are you contemplating renewing the lease, or are you looking for some other facility, or what's kind of your long-term plan?
At this time, personally, I feel the building's been meeting our needs quite nicely. Parking occasionally is an issue. I do know there's the Powder Mill project, so I'm not quite sure how that will impact the senior center. So it could be something that we need to explore. I feel the town has put a lot into making improvements in that building, so it would be a shame to walk away. But the other hand too, if we're really heavily impacted by the development going next door to us, that may be something we need to explore.
Okay. And one other question, looking at your crystal ball, when do you think you might start opening up for in-person services up there?
Yep, that is the question of the day. No, we're moving really slowly and cautiously. I feel we've come this far. We don't want to race ahead. So we've started doing outdoor programming in April. We want to amp that up probably for May and June, and then very slowly start bringing people back into the building for programming. We're doing one-to-one meetings in the building at this time. My concern personally is I feel the state's opening up really quickly, and I'd like to kind of sit back and see what happens now that the schools are open and we're seeing new strains, and even Acton is seeing increases each week. I really would like to play it safe, especially where the nicer weather's here, and be able to bring people together safely outdoors first.
Okay, thank you. Nice operation.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Nice work. So the next budget we're going to present tonight is the Finance Department budget, which has several divisions in it. Steve Barrett is the director of the Finance Department, and he is going to join us and walk us through the department and the different components. Steve, I believe, is in room 9. There he is. You need to zoom in. We can't see you. We got to zoom in. No, it's fine. Go ahead. How you doing?
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Select Board members, and Finance Committee members. As the town manager said, we're broadcasting live from Town Hall, Room 9. I'm Steve Barrett. I've been your Finance Director in Acton for the past 21 years. There are 4 distinct divisions housed in Town Finance. The Assessor Division, which is overseen by Assistant Finance Director, Principal Assessor Brian McMullen. The Accounting Division, which is overseen by Town Accountant Lisa Wojcik. The Clerk Division, which is overseen by Town Clerk Eva Skorotic. Finally, the tax collector treasury division is overseen by Teresa O'Leary. Excuse me. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank these division heads for their hard work. The last 13 months have been very difficult, but they've met every challenge. They've answered calls, texts, emails, nights, weekends, and holidays. Thank you for their loyalty and dedication to the town. The finance department budget in the budget book starts on page 55, and it lays out the finance department mission statement, as well as a list of some of the major services that are provided. Page 56 documents our organizational structure of the finance department through an FTE chart, and the division heads will provide some greater detail on their respective divisions when they speak. The FY 2022 Finance Director's budget can be found on pages 57 through 59. The budget houses entity-wide allocations for benefits, payroll taxes, debt, pension, OPEB, and property and liability insurances, to name a few. The budget also covers postal needs for the entire town hall building. The FY 22 budget request for this finance director budget is up almost $400,000, a 3.17% increase. And that increase is comprised in a large part by the $370,000 increase in the town's pension assessment for FY 22. Interesting, as town treasurer, I sit on the Retirement Board Advisory Council. That group, in fact, the management of Middlesex, they're targeting a 6.5% increase in their funding model to pay all benefits. So that's the number that they've given out to all the member towns as kind of an average increase that they need to pay all the benefit bills. As members of the group know, mortality assumptions, discount rate assumptions also factor into the data. I forwarded to the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen the 2020 Actuarial Report from Middlesex. It's quite a read if you want. But, you know, of note a little bit is, you know, it's kind of interesting saying this. If you look at the report, it looks at being funded, fully funded by 2038. If you look at our OPEB report, and we can get that for you, the last valuation was 12/31/18. We're looking to have our OPEB funded by 2032. So even at this point, we're starting to see a little strike date over the top of the mountains, which, you know, I'm happy to report that it's in sight. So other notable changes in the finance director's budget would be that we reduced our OPEB funding by $30,000. Now, don't assume that we decided we were getting close, so we backed off. Not us. We're putting our foot to the floor. And what we did do, though, is we moved $30,000 of OPEB funding into the ambulance enterprise fund due to their utilization of labor. And that transfer represents about 5% of the total annual OPEB contribution. And if you look at the total people that were eligible for OPEB, out of the 212 and the amount that work on the ambulance, you get pretty close to that 5% number. But the Middlesex retirement system change and the OPEB change, many line items were level funded in the budget, and those were the big changes. And what we'd like to do is bring up Brian McMullen next to go over his budgets, and we'll keep moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, members of the Select Board and the FinCom. Can you all hear me? Thank you. So, as Steve mentioned, I'm responsible for the assessor budget, or maybe he didn't, but I am. And so that's page 62 of the FY 22 budget book, so if you want to turn there as a reference. So just for folks that don't know who I am, I'm Brian McMullen. I'm the Assistant Finance Director, Principal Assessor. I've been with the town for 29 years, working on my 30th year. And just to kind of give you some of the highlights of the responsibilities of the assessors. So we're nipping on the heels of $5 billion in total town valuation this year. And that's comprised of about 9,000 plus parcels and 500 in personal property accounts. So personal property accounts are businesses' assets that some of those are taxable. So that's what those accounts represent. We're also responsible for the defense of those values. We're also responsible for about 23 motor vehicle excise tax bills and the associated abatements and exemptions that go along with those. We administer real estate abatements and exemptions, including the CPA surcharge. And annually, we hold the tax classification hearing. So it's a hearing we hold with the Board of Selectmen to outline the different options under the tax levy and how we can shift the burden from residential sectors to commercial. And then there's other changes, even within the residential sector, where you can shift the burden within that sector and also provide certain discounts for property owners, whether it be residential and or commercial. We also do the calculation of the annual allowable growth, which is new growth and new construction. We speak to that on the ALG plan. What's new growth going to be? That's basically new construction put in place in the current year. And we also annually prepare and submit the tax recap. So some of the initiatives are we want to continue to keep providing fair and equitable assessments. That's really our mission statement. We want to make sure we treat everybody fairly. And we want to continue to promote senior tax relief. We think it's an important initiative. And FY20 as a highlight, I just wanted to mention to you that we granted over $600,000 in property tax exemptions. So pretty significant. So if we actually look at the budget numbers now, so I would refer to this as a level service budget. It's up 2% overall. 96% of my budget is in salaries, and that consists of 3 FTEs. One would be the principal assessor, myself, an administrative assistant, and then a property lister. And then just to kind of one of the other highlights, there's only 2 increases, one in salaries. The second one would be increases in professional services line, and that's for appraisal of public utilities. And this is per DOR guidelines. So there was some change last year that was implemented. So State Department of Revenue used to provide those assessments on those public utilities. They no longer do that, but they require that appraisals be done on those. So we have an outside firm that we contract with to provide those detailed appraisals, which is very important. So that's really the bulk of the assessor's budget. So like I said, overall, we're up 2%. And it's primarily in the salaries lines and also that one particular line for professional services. And now I'll turn it over to Lisa Wojcik, who's our town accountant. Thank you.
I'm Lisa Wojcik, the town accountant. I've worked for the town for 27 years and I've been the town accountant for 9. My budget, which is on page 67, accommodates 4 FTEs, an assistant town accountant, a payables coordinator, myself, and a shared position with Human Resources who sets up and generates our bi-weekly payroll. My department pays employees and vendors on a bi-weekly basis. We also give financial support to departments. We record over $200 million worth of transactions a year. There's over 200 funds between the general fund, the enterprise funds, revolving fund, gifts, grants, agency funds, trust funds, stabilization funds, and our favorite OPEB. My FY22 budget is up 2% due to step increases. And I want to thank my department for working very hard at keeping running accounting as smooth as it does, especially over this past year. It hasn't been easy for anyone, but they've done an amazing job. And next up is Teresa, our Assistant Treasurer Collector.
Hi, I'm Teresa O'Leary. I'm the Assistant Treasurer Collector. I've been with the town in municipal finance since 2017. Our budget starts on page 69, and it includes the staff of myself, 2 collectors clerks, and 1 treasury clerk. As part of the finance department, we offer support for other divisions, but more importantly, we provide customer service to town residents. Annually, we process over 70,000 payments, provide hundreds of municipal lien certificates and pay tax statements, all while quickly responding to citizens' questions via phone and email, and this year at our new walk-up window service. The Treasury function is responsible for all town funds, from receiving them from other departments to safeguarding the funds while obtaining the highest yields, which unfortunately were an all-time low this year. In addition to our regular responsibilities, in fiscal 21, the collector and treasurer staff participated in covering town hotline and election shifts, participating in diversity and inclusion and social media working groups, attended women leading government events, and 2 of our staff members successfully completed the MMA Suffolk 5-week intensive finance program. And we are able to offer translation services in Russian, Ukrainian, and Spanish. We were able to, this past year was challenging for all, and I commend my staff for their seamless transition to working remotely, never missing a beat and offering exceptional customer service and timely payment processing while all supporting each other. For fiscal 22, we are looking to continue offering innovative ways to engage with residents and plan to increase the services available online to include MLC requests and resident parking stickers. We will also continue to seek opportunities to participate in town initiatives and training. Our budget is up 2% as a result of salaries. Next up is Eva.
Thank you, Teresa. My name is Eva Skorotic. I'm the town clerk for the town of Acton. I have worked for the town for 27 years. I've been town clerk for 17 years. The town population is currently 21,600. We have 16,000 registered voters in town. The town clerk's office is responsible for all federal, state, and local elections, as well as town meetings for the town of Acton. We also process vital records, birth, marriage, death records, as well as census, dog licenses, public records research, to mention a few. My clerk budget is located on page 72. There are no changes in that budget. My elections budget is on page 76, and the only change on that would be salaries. And at this point, I'd like to thank you all for having us, and if there's any questions for anyone in the finance department.
Let's go ahead. David, if you don't mind, I'll start with finance, which there aren't a lot yet. So Jason.
I understand from the last ALG or the ALG consensus meeting that the last tranche of money to make things all came out of the overlay fund. What is the balance in the overlay fund?
Thank you, Jason. I have to go and look, but I think that balance is probably around $1 million, maybe $1,250,000 in the open years.
Okay. Generally speaking, I would like to make sure that we see those numbers. I see that you just sent out the 26 liner. I'd love to see the balances on a regular basis for overlay and for the different enterprise funds, because I believe that they should all be considered as part of the generalized aggregate reserves of the town. So that's a request for ongoing information, please.
Adam.
Yes, thank you. I just want to mention that I had submitted a bunch of questions by in writing, which I received the answers to yesterday, but I haven't had time to do more than look those over in a cursory fashion. So I wanted to make the suggestion that perhaps it's prudent for these larger budget departments such as finance, town manager, some of these others, that maybe we should revisit or have these folks back at our next meeting to ask questions. I could go through a slew of questions for Steve Barrett at the moment, but I feel it would be a waste of time for he and perhaps everybody else paying attention if those questions and answers are redundant, if they've already been answered. So I just wanted to get probably Christy Anderson's opinion on whether, as a forum, we'd prefer if we ask some more detailed questions here that may be redundant, or should we put them off and ask them at the next meeting?
It's hard to say, Adam, because it sounds a little like you're saying that you didn't do your homework, so we should invite all these people to another meeting in which we can
No, what I'm saying is I received the answers to the questions yesterday, and I've been able to look over them in a cursory fashion, but I haven't been able to look over them in detail to formulate additional questions. So I'm afraid that some of the questions I'd still like answers to may be redundant. They may be partially answered in those. So, I can hit just a few of them right off the bat.
If you'd like to do that, you're certainly welcome to. My next recommendation would be that you write follow-up questions, and then you and I can discuss whether it would be appropriate to just have you ask them of Mr. Barrett or to invite Mr. Barrett and or someone else to come speak to us.
Yeah, I think that would be a better use of time because I know there's a lot of people on these and I don't want to get into too much detail. I don't want to get in the weeds.
Christy, John has his hand up.
Please go ahead.
John M.
Thank you. Just an offer that we would love to go into the weeds with you if you want to set up a time to talk one-on-one or two-on-one. We'd be happy to do that, Adam.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that would be great. I don't want to waste other people's times with if the questions, get too, like I say, get too deep. Thank you very much. It's wonderful.
Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Christy. Just a quick question for Brian. On the professional services line, I know we had the full reappraisal done in 2020. How many years does that buy us, or how soon will that line item reappear?
Well, that's a good question, Steve. So recently, State Department of Revenue changed it from every 3 years to 5 years.
Okay.
So annually they have us do what we call an interim adjustment. So they have us kind of iron out the wrinkles. So instead of having any kind of whiplash effect over 5 years of not doing anything in your values, they make sure that we meet at a minimum their minimum standards or requirements so that we don't have significant swings every 5 years. So we do what we call the interim adjustments, and then every 5 years we do the larger revaluation.
While I got you here, I just want to complain about my tax bill. That's okay.
Talk to Steve Barrett.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah.
Mr. Martin.
Yes, I noticed that we have a number of health insurance providers. I was wondering why we have the variety of health insurance providers instead of fewer. Is it contractual obligations with unions, or and whether it would be more efficient to have one larger health insurance provider?
So thank you, Dave, for that question. That's a great question. We some of it, I believe, is CBA related. I'm not sure if Marianne is in the waiting room, but yeah, we offer Blue Cross Blue Shield, HMO Blue. We have different provider plans, but you're right, we don't have one plan for the active people and one plan for retirees. We offer some choices. So that's kind of my piece of it, but we do offer some choices to the employees for benefits. And Marianne might be able to follow up a little bit more on that, Dave, when she comes on.
Okay, so I understand. Yes, it's nice to offer the employees choice. I know I appreciated it for myself. Would there be a cost benefit if we had fewer? Because there's actually, quite a few different companies here, and I didn't know if there's I assume that there's economies of scale with health insurance.
So there is. We're a member of the Acton Boxborough Health Claims Trust Fund, the town and the region. That group sets rates and provides rate guidance to the entities. But I think the primary plans are Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare and HMO Blue on active plans. In terms of pulling everybody together for a bigger kind of hit. The plans are really pretty standard. They're very similarly kind of cost structured. So I don't think you'd see a ton of difference if we brought, Blue Cross Blue Shield of New York into the mix. But I see Marianne there now. Maybe she can bail me out a little bit.
Hi, good evening. David, that's a great question. And so just a few years back, we had introduced a HSA, a health savings account. And so we are required to have an indemnity plan. So that's the PPO, and that's required by law. And with the HSA, it was the introduction of deductibles to town employees. So in HSA, you have to have a high deductible plan. So we have a $1,500 for individual and a $3,000 for family. And so being that it was the first time introducing a deductible and a $3,000 deductible for family, it was attached to the HSA, which again is a savings account that one can enter, and you're shaking your head so you're familiar with it. But at the same time, we knew that we had to also offer a low deductible plan for those who weren't quite financially ready to pay the first $3,000 out of pocket if they had the family plan. And so that's why we have a low deductible plan as well. And the low deductible plan, instead of the $1,500, $3,000, is $250 and $750 respectively.
Okay, is that the HMO Blue plan?
Correct.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Nan, I think you want to add to this?
Am I muted? Good question. I just wanted to add, since I'm on the health insurance trust, that what we're talking about is administrative costs, Dave. We're self-insured, so we pay Blue Cross and Harvard Pilgrim to administer plans, and they charge us a flat fee per person to administer the plan, and we do a fairly good job on beating up on them every year to make sure that that fee that they charge is the same. So under that scenario, there's not a lot to be gained by combining economies of scale. There would be if it was a risk-based premium.
Thank you.
Adam, I saw you put your hand down. Does anyone else? Right? Thank you very much.
So, well, thank you, finance team. Nice work with the presentations. Why don't we go to our next department, which is the fire department, led by Chief Robert Hart. And the fire department budget is on page 79.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Hart. Thank you for having me. I'm your fire chief. I've been with the town for over 32 years. I'd like to thank all the men and women of the Acton Fire Department who exemplify what a fire department should be. Thank you to the Select Board, Finance Committee, Town Manager, and all the Town Hall staff and citizens for their continued support. The fire department oversees 4 different and distinct annual operating budgets, which require funding for FY22. The largest budget we oversee is the general fund, which can be found on page 79 of the budget book. The Acton Fire Department is responsible for fire prevention and education, fire suppression, hazardous material, emergency response, ambulance and emergency medical services. In addition, together with other town departments, the fire department is responsible for emergency preparedness and disaster mitigation. Along with the police department, we are jointly responsible for the E91 Emergency Communications Dispatch Center. We bring you the service operating out of 3 fire stations, soon to be a 4th at 68 Harris Street, so thank you for that. Administration is located in the public safety facility. The fire chief, deputy fire chief, ALS coordinator, which is advanced life support, and an administrative assistant work out of the PSF. There are 44 members on the department deployed over 4 groups, providing year-round 24-hour day fire and EMS coverage to the town. All of our members are trained to the level of emergency medical technician, and of those, 17 are paramedics. All are required to graduate from the Mass Fire Academy 10-week-long firefighter recruit training program, and we currently do not maintain an on-call firefighter force. Soon to be operating out of 4 stations and responding to a wide variety of incidents, along with many calls happening at the same time, causes us to look at our staffing levels. Although additional staff was not incorporated into this year's budget, we will continue to advocate for additional staff. The Acton Fire Department relies on the membership to assist in many aspects of keeping this department operating. Along with performing their shift work, many aid in the following divisions. And it's through their hard work in these various areas that keep us operating to the best of our ability and providing outstanding services to the citizen of Acton. So included in that list is fire prevention, training division, public information, radio communications, paramedic oversight committee, protective gear, apparatus purchasing committee, fleet maintenance division, fire investigation unit, and the public education division. The department responded to 4,600 calls for service for FY21, of which 1,778 were medical type incidents. We responded to 51 fires in town, which include brush fires, electrical fires, car fires, chimney fires, dumpster fires, and the like. We most recently assisted at 2 house fires in the town of Maynard, and in Acton we had 4 significant fires, one at Rex Lumber, Alcott Street resident, an Old Lantern residence, and a large brush fire near the dam at Lake Nagog. So that's our budget, and out of that, we work hard to provide all those services. And I'd like to thank the men and women of the department for all their continued support. Operating in pandemic circumstances has been trying, as other divisions have said. And for us, boots on the ground, heat of the battle, so to speak, our staff has just done a tremendous job, and I couldn't be more proud. Our Fire Alarm Network Revolving Fund is on page 86. This fund houses all financial activity pursuant to our fire alarm call box program. The municipal fire alarm system has 470 fire alarm boxes on it. The fire alarm division maintains the wiring that runs on the utility poles and the decoding equipment in the 3 stations and the public safety building. The fire alarm division does pole transfers, so they transfer wires from old broken poles that are being replaced onto the new poles. And we refurbish the boxes on the system, which could include replacing wiring and internal moving parts. We also replace the wiring both overhead and underground that connect all the boxes. We maintain the boxes by painting them. And the division also works with developers and contractors to ensure the proper number and location of new fire alarm boxes that are installed on the system. From time to time, we assist the Information Technology Department with pole transfers of the town's fiber optic cable. The 2 personnel assigned to this division attend continuing education classes for municipal fire alarm systems provided by LW Bills and the International Municipal Signal Association. The Fire Alarm Division also installs and removes the overhead banners that announce various community and civic activities. We work on projects throughout the town, including hanging the chain falls at Narrow Park, working on traffic lights, holiday lights, American flags, project graduation, and the changing of light bulbs on the poles in the town parking lots. We continue to work with the Massachusetts Department of Transportation on proposed intersection improvements with planning the relocation of our system utilities. Excuse me. So on to our Ambulance Enterprise Fund, found on page 88. So we celebrated our 3rd anniversary of providing advanced life support to the citizens of town on September 5th, 2020. This fund handles all the town's emergency medical system operations, both basic and advanced life support. It funds 8 firefighter paramedics along with the ALS coordinator. Their benefits are budgeted and paid for out of this fund, and this includes, as Steve Barrett alluded to earlier, a new OPEB contribution for these members. All expenses necessary to operate the enterprise fund are carried on this budget. This includes a considerable amount of training from outside vendors, necessary medications and medical equipment. The state requires a doctor to oversee our advanced life support operation, and Dr. Gert Walter of Emerson Hospital is our medical control doctor. We work closely with Emerson Hospital staff to ensure we are properly trained and in conformance with statewide treatment protocols. The state requires that we are licensed to operate as an ALS ambulance service and has extensive oversight. Oversight of medications we carry, This includes a rigorous annual state inspection of our service. The fire department responded to 1,778 medical calls last year. We have 2 capital requests in this program. One is the 2nd year of a 3-year lease of $140,000 to purchase a new ambulance, which should be arriving within a month, and a new hybrid command car purchase, and this purchase is within harmony of our replacement program. The last fund is fairly new to the fire department. That's the Emergency Management Department. And that's found on page 90. And this is the first year that we've taken on this division. It's being overseen by Deputy Fire Chief Anita Arnhem, and she has been named the Emergency Management Director, or the EMD. And our plan is to retool and create a mission statement that identifies the scope of services that this division will provide. And currently, given the need for virus testing and community vaccinations, this division continues to support those day-to-day services. The FY22 budget provides funding for communication capabilities and ordinary maintenance for emergency management equipment such as generators and radios. So again, I'd like to thank everybody in attendance for their support, but mainly the men and women of the fire department for really taking care of the citizens of town during this difficult time. So questions?
Starting with the Finance Committee, anyone? Steve?
Sorry. Thank you, Chief. So what's the plan for the balance in the ambulance enterprise fund? From the operating results look pretty steady and pretty good. So are we planning to buy any more equipment, or how are we planning to use that money?
So Steve, that's we look out 5 years, and we think we do a pretty good job of projecting its uses with leasing of the ambulance and pulling the command car out, as well as adding the OPEB. We feel we have a comfortable fund balance to absorb any downslides in revenue. Currently, the pandemic has shown a little bit of a deficit in our ambulance transport fees. So we can't guarantee our income. It's based on 911 calls, so we're a little reluctant to do a lot with that.
All right, well, it builds up over the years, and I'd like to see that we're not, we have a plan to use it for that purpose, or it could come back to the general fund.
Pretty sure we have that covered.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Christine?
Hi, thank you. What is the right number for, if money were no barrier, personnel wise, how many would you like to see added to the force?
That's a great question. It's been kicked back and forth with many consultants and varying from chief to chief. My crystal ball with an unlimited checkbook would be adding 16. That would get us really close to our NFPA standard of care, if you will, a standard of service. But more short-term, adding of 8 personnel would help us tremendously.
And if I remember correctly from last year's presentation, you said you have to add in groups of 8, right, in order to handle all of the shifts. Is that correct?
It's complicated, but the short answer is yes. Yeah.
Okay, so two more sets of 8 would be the ideal.
Correct.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
At what time do you think we will need at least another set of 8?
Well, right now is a great time, but over the next few years, we should be really considering adding 8 additional personnel.
And I know you need 8 to cover all of the shifts. Would that really be just go and hire 8 more people, or would it happen through the course of a year? How logistically does that work out?
So with our recent contract negotiation, we negotiated an impact shift to try to bring that staff level up during the day or during our busiest time to ease the transition into that, Christy. So there is a plan in the background to bring that in slowly.
Thank you. Any select board members have any questions? I haven't seen anyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Nice work. We'll move now for our next presentation. Will be from our Director of Human Resources, Marianne Fleckner. And Marianne's budget is found on page 204. Nope, sorry, 92. Page 92. Marianne?
Page 92 to 95, I'm not sure though.
Yep, that's right.
Oh, okay, thank you. Hello, Select Board and FinCom again. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Just a quick summary of human resources. My name is Marianne Fleckner. I'm the Director of Human Resources. I've been in public service for 33 years. I've been with the town for the past 13. My coworker is Mary Beth Zabak. She spends half her time in human resources and half her time in the finance payroll division, as Steve Barrett had mentioned earlier. So I also would like to say that Mary Jane Kenny, for those of you who knew Mary Jane, we are very, very happy for her. She retired in June of last year of 2020. We're very sad for ourselves because we miss her terribly, but we're really happy that she was able to retire. So just some highlights of human resources this past year. My goodness, everyone's been talking about COVID, and we developed policies in record time under the direction of John Mangiarotti, and a couple of those that were pretty much at the cutting edge for most of Massachusetts was that we created a policy that dealt with the federal Family First Coronavirus Response Act. For those who are a little unfamiliar with that, it allowed employees to receive paid time off if they were affected by COVID-19. That helped our employees considerably, especially those who don't carry benefits. And so that was something that was hugely helpful. And we wrote a policy so that we could follow the guidelines that were provided to us by the federal government. And we were able to share our policy with other communities across the Commonwealth. We also created, under John's direction, a temporary telecommuting policy, as though many of us started to have to work remotely. And so these were policies that literally, right, like many of you in your own professions, in your own life, you just had to quickly do a 180 overnight. And it was pretty fascinating to see how quickly you can really work in great team effort. Another thing that happened exactly at the same time, bad timing, was that we were just doing open enrollment, literally that following day. Just like the schools, is that I guess you can laugh about it now, but it was literally overnight where you had an open enrollment that then had to go virtual. And so we were very fortunate working with our T department and all the employees who were extremely understanding, and we moved to an online open enrollment. And it went very smoothly, and so smoothly that we are repeating it again this year, most of it, and probably going to do, even after COVID leaves us, hopefully soon, that we'll continue with some of the online open enrollment procedures going forward. A good thing that comes out of this is that you can see your efficiencies. You can see how you can do your work faster, more efficiently. You can do it better in some regards. So we were, I guess you want to say, fortunate to be able to see that, if it was even, say, forced upon all of us. We do take care of approximately 200 to 300 employees, depending on the season. Plus, we have 500 retirees. They're either town, municipal retirees or school retirees. And so approximately 700 to 800 people in total. Some highlights under, like, for example, we transitioned to personnel records that are going to be online. And again, we found that when we were working remotely and someone called and said, is that in my personnel record? And, do you run to town hall to check that out? And so we thought it'd be wise to have an online system for personnel records going forward, starting January 1st of 2021. We right now are in negotiations with two of our unions with AFSCME. AFSCME is the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, and they represent the highway, DPW, transfer station, the municipal properties, public facilities, and the cemetery. And plus the Teamsters will be getting negotiations with them, and they represent our dispatchers. So that is the contracts that ended this coming June 30th. We have done, hopefully we feel very happy that we've been able to continue with our training. We really zoomed in on diversity, inclusion, and equity. Again, under John's direction, a consultant was hired called Community Circle. Looking around, I see many familiar faces that were on that training about a month or so ago. It was offered twice. It was a 3-hour training. They did a great job, and we'll continue to work on, as John had mentioned earlier, on the diversity, inclusion, and equity piece. And also, we've been able to still have the all-staff meetings, which is hugely important for communication. John has had an all-staff meeting on September 25th. And the reason why I remember that date is that some of you may be familiar with our Professional Development Day. And it's a great opportunity for employees to talk with others that you really don't ever really get to see or talk with. And we had an all-staff meeting online, and it was a Professional Development Day. And I think the employees really got a lot out of it. We did a lot of great training. And then we had one in December, and our third one is planned around our STAR event, where we acknowledge people who have had X number of years of service, 10, 20, 30, 40 years of service. And that all-staff meeting, STAR event, is scheduled for next Friday, April 16th. So we've been keeping really busy in person and remotely. Quickly going to the human resources budget, I think the main thing that you probably can see in the budget is that our senior work program has been so, I'm trying to think of the right adjective to use, just so rewarding for the seniors and for us. And every year we get more requests. And this year, of course, it was a little bit more challenging because we couldn't have the seniors at site. But they're slowly coming back, and we're really excited about that, and they are as well. So for fiscal year 22, we're looking to increase the hours from 105 hours to 115 hours. And that would be a $150 increase per year for the senior. Currently, they can earn up to $1,575 per year. And that would increase to $1,725, a $150 increase by increasing the hours to 115 hours. And hence, that's why you see the increase on that line for fiscal year 22, which raises it to $56,925. Also, I just wanted to point out that we have this year experienced some expensive surgeries, 111F, which is the police and fire injury insurance line item. We're budgeted for $94,000, but I do feel very comfortable that looking at these injuries and the people back, that we can keep that at $94,000, which is consistent with the 21 budget. That is it in summary. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions? I don't see anything from the Finance Committee, Select Board. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann. We're going to go next to information technology. Nice work, Mary Ann. Information technology budget is overseen by our assistant town manager, Mark Hald, and his team. Mark, you're on, and Matt Frost is here too.
Good evening. Am I audible?
You are.
All right. Excellent. So good evening. My name is Mark Hald, and I am the assistant town manager, as John pointed out. I'm proud to have been with the town for almost 21 years now. The end of FY20 and throughout FY21, we've managed the technology side of our COVID response and continued our operations, where large amounts of technology were deployed to staff remote offices, such as laptop computers and office telephones. I'm in my home office now, and it looks just like my town hall office. It's amazing. We've added building electronic security where it did not yet exist. And that's kind of in cooperation with things that facilities did, like motorized openers and touchless controls to open them. And we've equipped some conference rooms around town, known as Zoom rooms, from where you have seen several folks tonight taking place in this meeting. And you'll see when the buildings reopen. And a lot of this change and additions was funded through the CARES program that came down from the federal government. We also created and continue to operate a new town services hotline. It's a centralized telephone answering point that's answered by staff across the organization, whether they're in their Acton office or at their home office. In non-COVID projects, we've been working on developing the data side of a new aerial photography collection that we obtained last year. That's for our GIS system. And we are assisting police and fire and dispatch with the Acton Concord Regionalized Dispatch Project. And with the Cable Advisory Committee, we're working to finalize the cable television license and fiber optic network lease that will be in place for the next 10 years. So overall, the IT and GIS budget is up around 1.1%. And just with that, I just want to really thank our Chief Technology Officer, Matt Frost, and his staff for keeping things going and implementing the new systems that we put in. And for the Town Services Hotline, I want to thank our Geographic Information Officer, Kristen Alexander, as well as all of the staff in all of the departments that have participated in its success. Thank you.
Any questions? Jason?
Yes, thank you. I have two quick questions. The first one is, what is our insurance, or what is our plan to recover from a ransomware attack? Interesting question. I just filled out a survey with our insurance carrier for cybersecurity insurance. I don't have the numbers. If Steve Barrett is still on the call, we could maybe introduce him back, but I'm not sure what the number is, but we can get that to you. And are we using on-premise or off-premise backup? And are we using snapshot?
We don't want to go into too much detail on our security measures in a public meeting, but I'm sure Mark would love to talk to you about it offline.
Very well. In general, we do both. Thank you. And then the only other question I have is, are we continuing to move towards the cloud, or or have we moved those applications that we expect to move into that OpEx model instead of a CapEx model? Several systems, several large systems that we've got, particularly the financial system, is in the cloud. The other systems, we have been experimenting with using Amazon Web Services for some systems, and we've been talking about deploying some appliances to the cloud, as well as some redundant servers that we operate. So do you expect there to be a shift over the next couple of years towards an OpEx model, or do you anticipate maintaining more or less the model that we have currently? I think it will be a slow migration. We kind of put a system or two there at a time and make sure that everything continues to operate as expected. But I think if the way that the technology has modified or allowed us to expand the way that we work, it certainly makes sense to put more things in the cloud than we have right now. And lastly, I have to say that I was actually quite surprised to see that your current year expenditures are running right along the regular percentage for this time of year. I would have expected the IT department to have taken a much larger hit this year. I would have thought that there had been a lot of asks of you, and it certainly sounds as though there have been a lot of asks. How are you able to absorb all of those asks and not take a hit to your budget? With a lot of help from our finance department and their consultant on CARES, they do the magic behind the scenes, and a lot of that gets charged off to special accounts that don't necessarily, they may appear here in the beginning, but then are reclassified over time as they're authorized by the Act. Mostly CARES. Right. Thank you. Those are my questions, and I would like to follow up with Mr. Hall about ransomware protections.
Roland.
Evening, sorry for being late. I thought we started at 7 tonight. Mark, how many people are in the IT staff now? How many heads?
We have 5 full-time, not including myself. I'm in the town manager budget.
Thank you.
Do we have any select board questions? Other FinCom questions? I think that's it. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
I'll see you a little later.
Thank you to the IT team who really kept us running here. We all did a lot of things to operate the government, but we couldn't have done anything if they weren't excellent at what they do. So thank you for that. Another group that we're going to talk with you about tonight is our land use group. The land use department starts on page 102, and the land use department is led by the director, Selby. And Selby is here with us tonight. Selby, welcome.
I apologize. I was a little slow getting him up to the panel.
There he is. All right.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Thanks. So good evening, members of the board and the Finance Committee. My name is Selby, and I am Acton's Land Use and Economic Development Director, a position I have held for just over 5 years. The Land Use Department was created in 2015 by combining the Building, Health, Planning, and Natural Resource divisions into one department, and we're located on the ground floor of the North Wing of Town Hall. That's to the left as you enter from the parking lot. The Land Use Department provides a wide range of services, including issuing permits and conducting inspections for a myriad of activities, from simple signs at a business to entire subdivisions. The land use staff support a variety of town boards and committees, literally from A to Z, from the Agricultural Commission to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And as others have noted, the last year has been an interesting and difficult one in the midst of a pandemic. But the land use staff has done an excellent job pivoting to maintain exceptional services to the residents of Acton. Many land use staff have been working from home during the pandemic, but many others have been working from Town Hall every day, providing exceptional services and offering customer service through window hours and by appointment. And we all look forward to soon opening Town Hall to the public and returning to normal operations. Each land use division is led by a division head, and you'll be hearing from each of them about their respective FY22 budgets shortly. Building Commissioner Frank Ramsbottom heads up the building division. Health Director Cheryl Ball leads the health division. Kristen Gieshard recently took the helm of the planning division as our newest planning director and zoning enforcement officer. And Tom Tidman heads up the natural resources division, which includes conservation, cemeteries, and recreation. The land use department organization chart and full-time employee count are included on page 103 of the budget book. There are no proposed changes to the FTE count for FY22. In addition to providing support and direction for the land use department, my personal work includes procurement, project management, and economic development. In 2020, a bunch of my time was dedicated to supporting the small business community that was adversely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. More detail about our efforts to help the business community is outlined in page 104 of the budget book. The FY22 land use and economic development budget, shown on page 105, includes salaries for my position and portions of 3 clerical staff, professional services, and professional development for the department. The FY22 budget represents a decrease of 2.5%. If there are any questions about the land use and economic development budget, I'd be happy to answer them now. And if there are none, then I would introduce Building Commissioner Frank Ramsbottom to provide an overview of the services and budget for the building division.
Any questions? Nope.
Great. Frank?
Well, Matt, if you could bring Frank, Cheryl, and Kristen in now, and I think that'd be helpful. And Tom.
Yeah, Frank is already up on the panel. Working on getting the others up now.
Frank. You should see the Francis Faulkner room, what it looks like now. We had the historic walls all replastered as water damage has caused issues over the last decade or so. And they just finished today. It looks really nice. And we're gonna get it painted before you all come back. And we'll be meeting again in person someday soon. Frank is our building commissioner, and he's joining us remotely. Have we sorted that out yet?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'll start talking. So Frank Ramsball, I'm the building commissioner. I've worked for the town of Acton for 14 years. I've been the commissioner for 12. Our mission statement, everything is in the book there. I don't know if you want me to reread it. It's pretty cut and dry. The only other thing we do that isn't in there, we support the fire department often when there's damage to buildings, fire trucks going into buildings or so, to determine whether people can safely remain in their buildings. The building department has one full-time building inspector, one part-time building inspector, 3 contractual plumbing inspectors, 2 contractual electrical inspectors. We're assigning 1.5 secretarial from the land use division. And I think this year, obviously it's been a little different. Probably the hardest change to deal with was probably on the secretaries. Just dealing with things. We usually use like 3 or 4 senior workers a year, and we didn't have them. But it's good. Hopefully we're going to be opening up soon. That'll be great. Not much changing in our budgets. Let's see. Yeah, there's nothing really amazing happening. The code books are carrying over from year to year because the state keeps telling us they're going to issue new codes, and we're waiting. We don't want to buy them and buy the wrong code books, so we're waiting for them to update the codes. And that's what that $4,500 that we're carrying over. Our revolving fund, we're a little behind on paying the plumbing and gas, the private contractual inspectors, but we're catching up on that pretty fast. So you'll see by the end of the year, we'll probably exceed the $156,000 that we spent last year and be closer to $200,000. It was a very busy year for them with the apartment buildings being built. So, I don't know. That's what I got. Any questions?
Mike?
Yeah, it's just a sort of a question for the future. Will your department have the resources to handle like the inspection and the certification of the new twin schools, or do you have to subcontract that out?
We're handling the inspections for that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Are you charging the town? Or are you charging the schools? Excuse me. Do they pay a fee like any other entity?
They paid some fees. I don't recall what the exact fees were. I apologize for that. I will get back to you on that.
If I may jump in.
One of the things about the school project different from others is it's not happening at a high rate of speed, so we're able to keep up with the inspections on it versus some private projects where they just move really fast. So, sorry.
Jason?
If I may jump in, what I was actually raising my hand to do was to actually thank Frank and the town and the board and the select board, all of the above, for agreeing to charging the school building project at cost rather than doing the regular per $100,000 or per $1,000 project planning. So I wanted to thank them for being very equitable with the other partners in the school district and for providing that service exactly at cost, being that it would be strange to charge one school function, which is a town function, the costs that are normally charged, rates that are normally charged for private enterprise. So I wanted to take the time to thank the building inspector and the town and the board and the select board for making sure that that was not a topic of contention for the school building committee. So thank you very much.
Do you have any other questions? David?
Yes, where do the fees that come into the building inspector, building permits, et cetera, where do they show up in the budget book?
I don't know if they show up in the budget book. They go to the general fund.
Well, they do go to the general fund.
Well, the vast majority of it goes to the general fund. We collect fees that are associated with plumbing and electrical permits, specifically to pay the plumbing and electrical inspectors, and those go to a revolving fund. But everything else, the building permit fees go into the general fund. And Steve Barrett can explain what happens with those.
Maybe this can be one of those offline things. If someone could point me after the meeting tomorrow, whatever, where the building and inspection permits come in, some revolving fund, some general fund, I'd be interested in that.
I think those reports are fairly easy to run.
It's part of the local receipts that we could consider as one of the revenues that we look at every year. But we can give you a breakdown if that's what you're looking for.
Actually, I'm mostly interested in the total amounts that we collect for building, inspection fees, et cetera. So again, that can be offline.
Anyone else? Thank you.
And coming up after me will be Cheryl Ball, who's the health director, who's done an amazing job this past year.
Thanks, Frank. Good evening, everybody. So as Frank mentioned, I'm Cheryl. I'm the health director. I'm approaching my 33rd year working for the town. Besides myself, I have one full-time senior health inspector, one health inspector, and one admin. So the health division has general oversight of health operations, including food, septic, camps, housing, pools, stormwater, public health programming, hazardous materials, and sealer of weights and measures inspections. In addition, we routinely apply for and receive grants to promote health and wellness in our community. And we are currently working on a collaborative grant with the town of Boxborough and Littleton to help reduce isolation and loneliness in our senior population. Coincidentally, that grant was applied for prior to the pandemic, but it suited our needs very well. We have held virtual meetings that include traveling through New England with Ted Reinstein. He's a Chronicle reporter. We've had mindfulness and meditation classes, and then we're going to be passing out flowers to hopefully brighten our seniors' day at a scheduled grab-and-go food event at the COA for Earth Day. So it's been an incredibly busy and challenging year for my division, one that has brought on new and increased workloads. I can't thank my staff enough, as all of them have stepped up to this new challenge with no complaints. As you know, this virus is new to everyone, and we all needed to learn about the complexities to be effective. Initially, the orders being passed down by the Board of Health and or the governor's office were ever-changing and required all of us to stay on top of these changes so we could implement them effectively. We routinely sent notifications to our many businesses to advise them of updates, as well as fielding many calls from both businesses and residents. We also posted information to help our residents on a fairly regular basis, especially back in the beginning. We also worked, our division works with the Acton vaccine group, which we called Operation Shot in the Arm, and we helped to vaccinate residents. So we were limited to the vaccine that we were given, but we did the best we could with the vaccine we were allocated. We've also joined with 8 other communities and applied to utilize the Kmart site as a mass vaccination site. We're hopefully awaiting approval on that. This year has been difficult as we still have our regular duties in addition to all of this, but we stepped up to the challenge and will continue to do so to protect the public health of all of our residents. So I'm responsible for 6 budgets, 1 general fund, 1 enterprise, and 4 revolving accounts. My budget starts on page 113. The professional salaries line item has been increased to accommodate prior year salary allocations due to the less than expected revenue estimates for FY22, primarily due to COVID. The allocations for both food and hazmat account, which are revolving funds, have decreased to reflect this change. We have seen and expect to continue to see a decline in businesses during this difficult time for all. This has been a challenging year for everybody. My heart goes out to all the struggling businesses. All my other revolving enterprise fund budgets are level funded except for position control. Thank you. Any questions?
Do we have any questions? I don't see any. Thank you very much, Cheryl.
Okay, I'd like to introduce Tom Tidman next.
Good evening, everyone. Tom Tidman, representing the Natural Resources Division of Land Use. I've been with the town since 1987. Natural Resources is a little bit unique. We have 3 separate mini departments within our group. We're conservation, cemeteries, and recreation. Conservation, we manage more than 1,900 acres of conservation land. That includes the Arboretum. Cemetery Division, we manage 3 cemeteries and all the grounds maintenance on all of our properties. In recreation, we manage about 60 acres of land. That includes the 40-acre Nara Park, a monster unto itself. Our group is a little bit unique in that we support a whole bunch of committees and commissions. We provide direct staff support to the Conservation Commission, Cemetery Commission, Recreation Commission, Agricultural Commission, Open Space Committee, Land Stewardship Committee, and the Friends of the Arboretum. So in a way, the Zoom year has been rather pleasant. We don't spend nearly as many nights in Acton. Other things accomplishments this year. We completed the north building at the Sports Pavilion at Nara Park, which is a handicap accessible bathroom and men's and women's bathrooms. It'll be open to the public this summer. We completed the new ADA compliant access to the Arboretum, the entrance, using CPA funds. We just signed the contract a couple of weeks ago, and I'm meeting with the contractor this Friday for the final phase of the Ice House Pond trail system that'll take you into the Morrison Farm. So that's pretty exciting. That project will be completed by June. With respect to our budget for FY22, at the manager's directive, we level funded our FY22 budget. So, and it starts on page 120 of your report. But again, it's level funded. And I'll open it up for any questions.
Questions? I don't see any. Thank you very much.
And let me just note, as Frank had said, I can't believe the job Cheryl and Heather York have done this year. I was on with the Board of Health last week, and just listening to the questions that they answer, and my goodness, my hat goes off to them. I'm with great pleasure, I'd like to introduce our new town planner, Kristen Gieshard. And then actually, I think right after that, Melissa is going to jump on, Melissa Ryer, with our recreation report.
Melissa, how you doing?
Good, how are you? So hi, I'm the recreation director for the town, and I've worked for the recreation department for about 10 years now, and I've been as the recreation director for the past 2 years. The mission statement for the recreation department is building a sense of community through quality recreation. Other than myself, we have 2 other full-time staff members, Mary Lou Verpucci, and she's our office manager, and Maura Haberman, she's our event and program coordinator. Recreation is self-supported through a 53D revolving account. Our department manages Narrow Park, municipal athletic fields and playgrounds, the skate park, Camp Acton, and many programs and classes offered to the community. We issue permits for field and facility use and run a year-round concert and event series. We're also responsible for all recreation capital projects, and some of them that happened this year were Jones Playground, additions to the skate park, and the construction of the new sports pavilion at Narrow Park. During the pandemic, we provided many online activities for the community. We ran a safe and successful summer camp and beach operations. This current school year, we ran an education enrichment center, and these were offered to kids that were doing the remote days at our center. In terms of our budget, so it is a revolving fund, not the general fund, and it was an overall 20% decrease this year. So some of the bigger ones was the advertising. We kind of crossed out some of the older ones and added it into this. So we had some marketing costs that were just all put into advertising. We decreased our bus budget. So we aren't planning a July 4th celebration. And typically we have shuttle buses that come to the park. So that was decreased by a lot. One of our big increases were counselor wages. So we run a very successful and big NARA camp program. And minimum wage has increased, and it was slightly over this past fiscal year, so we did increase it a little bit. And then we also needed extra staff for some COVID-19 guidelines that we needed to follow. We also just recently hired a new recreation assistant position, and that's been added to the budget, and that is falling under rec revolving fund, not the general fund. That's all I have for you. Is there any questions about recreation?
Do we have any questions? David.
Yes, I don't know if I'm missing it again. This is kind of related to my last question. Where can I see, Melissa, the fees that you collect for, various, the camp programs, the NARA programs?
So you can find all of those on our website. So we have a town website, and then we have a separate website, which is actonrec.com. And any of our programs and stuff are right there. If there's specific programs you're interested in, I can send them to you.
I'm interested, maybe this can be after too, budget-wise, how much is collected from each source of revenue that you have? That's just a curiosity question. And again, somebody can get back to me.
Yeah, I can send that to you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Jim.
Yeah, I noticed with the COA that the recreation component of the COA is also an inroads to noticing issues, problems, concerns that people might be having, and that they can then refer to, their social worker or other appropriate experts. And I'm wondering, how do you have a standard way of procedures when, someone shows up for camp and seems, way off, or, someone comes to a class and they just, you can tell that there's something wrong. Do you have standards for how you potentially intervene?
Kind of like, you mean like socially, and if there's something going on with them?
Yeah, like let's say there's a mental health crisis, or...
So we do extensive training for our camp staff, and we do talk about things like that. All of our instructors are Corey checked, and they're typically trained within their own group. So they're vendors for us. So they are trained by, we have super soccer stars, and that's a whole nother entity, and we collaborate and then put it together. But they do go through trainings for stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Anyone else? Roland.
Thank you. Melissa, you said the 4th of July celebration is canceled this year at NARA?
Yes.
we could hold it, but only 100 people could come.
Yeah. Typically, we attract over 10,000, so it's right now.
I missed it. Obviously last year because of it, and we've attended many of the years since my son's been born, and it's been great. So I do commend the staff for it's a great event and great to have the town do that, and I can see why. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see anyone else, although we're on two screens on my.
All right, so the next person I want to introduce is Kristen Gieshard from Planning.
Thank you, Melissa. Good evening. I'm Kristen Gieshard. I serve as the Planning Director and Zoning Enforcement Officer, and I've been in my position now for a little over 3 months. I've been working for the town for about 9 years now, starting as the Assistant Planner and then Senior Planner. And the division team includes Robert Hummel, who's a full-time assistant planner who has been with the town for almost 6 years. The division currently has a vacancy in the senior planner role. And we are also supported by a part-time administrative assistant in the land use department whose position is currently vacant, and we're hoping to fill that soon. Looking on budget book page 132, we're proposing a level budget. Our primary budget is comprised of salaries. The one change we did propose this year was a slight reduction in our travel budget due to COVID. Our primary services in our division is providing services for the town, staff support for our regulatory boards, the Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals, and Board of Selectmen for site plans. In this role, we manage the permit and public hearing processes. We provide professional staff reviews and draft decisions. We also plan and facilitate public outreach efforts to explore zoning changes that are aligned with the town's master plan, Acton 2020. And in addition to staffing regulatory boards, we also provide staff support for the Community Preservation Committee and administer the CPA program. The Planning Division is also the zoning compliance arm of the town. So we review building permits and work with residents and business owners for zoning compliance. And I'd have to say the most enjoyable part of my job is project management and community development. So for the past 7 years, we've been managing the Kelly's Corner infrastructure project, which is scheduled for construction in 2022. So it's coming up pretty soon. The housing production plan update was approved over this last year and included a robust public outreach effort. And we look forward to working with community members as we embark on an updated community master plan in the next few years. So in 2019, the division processed 61 permits. Those are ranging from sign permits for businesses to sign special permits with the planning board to 40B projects, site plans, subdivisions, and other types of special permits and variances with the Zoning Board of Appeals. In the last year, the division also aided in securing $340,000 in grants and technical assistance for the Housing Choice Grant most recently and the local Rapid Recovery Grant Program, as well as the community video that you can see on the town's homepage. We're also looking for outside funding to advance goals of the current master plan and housing production plan, kind of at an ongoing basis. And over the next year, we will be focusing on the Powder Mill Corridor Study, which we're working on with the town of Maynard. Hopefully you can attend the public forum coming up on Thursday. And we will also be working on that Great Road Commercial Corridor program, the local rapid recovery program, to hopefully assist businesses overcoming the struggles with COVID. And we will be bringing the planning and acquisition phase of the Kelly's Corner infrastructure project to a close. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Do we have any questions? Jim.
In recent years, it seems like it's become more common for the permits to undergo a peer review with outside experts. I think this is a wonderful practice. I wanted to verify. I think these are always paid for by the applicant, but I wanted to check that.
Yeah, so more recently we have been using GCG. They're an engineering firm. to do the engineering peer review. So you're correct, that is that's paid for by the applicant. So we collect funds from them, and then we pay the consultant GCG directly from that fund.
Great, thank you. It's a wonderful way of getting even more expertise on those plans.
Any further questions? Thank you very much, Kristen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen and the land use team. Terrific work this year and tonight with your presentations. We're nearing the halfway point. I'd like to introduce our next guest, Heather York, the Director of Nursing, and then I wonder if the board are interested in a small 5-minute break. And then we have about 6 or 7 more groups to go, which we promise to give you a lot of content, and we're delivering on that. But we'll also promise not to keep you here all night. So how does that sound? Okay, so Heather York, the Director of Nursing, which is on the budget for Heather's operation is on page 139.
Thank you, John. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you all. So I'm Heather York. For those who don't know me, I am the nursing director for the Acton Nursing Service. So I have been with the town for almost 17 years, 11 of which have been as the nursing director. I started out as a visiting nurse in the community, worked as the clinical manager, and then took this position back in 2010. So the nursing department has 2 different aspects to it, as well as 2 budgets in the general fund. One is our home care nursing service, where we do home visits in the community for skilled nursing, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech language pathology, medical social work, and certified home health aid services. This is covered as we are a Medicare, Medicaid certified agency. So those visits are covered by insurance. The other piece is our public health nursing piece. We do the public health for the town, and in the last year, obviously, this has been a challenge with COVID and kept our department extremely busy. If you look on page 139, that's where my budget starts. So our home care services, as I said, covers a plethora of things. We have done typically around 120 admissions a year. That was our number for fiscal year 20, and we've stayed pretty constant with those numbers in the past 5 to 6 years. Currently, for this fiscal year, we're at 78 admissions overall. That's about 9 admissions per month. How that equates to visits for FY20, with our 120 admissions, we had over 2,700 visits for staff out in the community. And then for FY21, we've done about 1,900 so far year through today. For public health services, what we do as a public health department is we oversee the disease surveillance in town. And then we do a variety of outreach to the community. Of course, that's been a little bit of a challenge this year because our building has been closed. We typically do blood pressure clinics, seasonal flu clinics, immunizations under the childhood immunization program through the State Department of Public Health for uninsured and underinsured families. We do wellness visits in the community and safety checks. And we also do health discussions, typically at our offices at the 30 Sudbury Road Human Services and Senior Center building. We also do impact baseline concussion testing, which unfortunately we were not able to do this year as the schools were in a hybrid level, and we just couldn't do that type of testing in the rooms that we typically do. So we're hoping to do that in the fall, as we feel that that's a very good important community outreach with our school system especially. And then we do balanced testing and training programs also at the 30 Sudbury Road. We were able to do 2 of those in the fall outside with our physical therapist, Karen Patterson. which was really exciting for us to be able to see some of our senior population last fall before we had the second surge. Even though our building has been closed, we have continued with our VNA services, our podiatry clinic within the building. We do 2 to 3 of those a month with a certified podiatry nurse who comes in for appointments at our location. And then we've, kept our staff manning the phones, taking calls for COVID. And then, of course, the disease tracking that we've been doing over the last year has kept us extremely busy. Myself and my public health nurse, Linda Cullen, who actually retired in October, man that through that time frame. And then I've been doing the additional cases since that time, as well as assistance from a couple of my per diem nurses and with Cheryl Ball and her staff in the health department. And I really appreciate all their assistance over the last year. On page 140, we have our full-time equivalent list of staff. In the 2 budgets, we have 5.825 full-time employees. And how that breaks down is the nursing director, myself, clinical manager, our community health nurse, which is our case manager for the VNA, one of our home health aides, and our admin assistant are all full-time. We share so we share over 2 budgets: the nursing director, clinical manager, community health nurse, and the admin assistant. 14% of the admin assistant is in the public health budget, and then 33%, I believe, or 34% of the other positions are split, and 34% is in the public health budget. We also have 2 per diem home health aides that are used as needed for the VNA, 3 per diem nurses also used for the VNA, who do assist in the fall during our flu clinics. And then we have in our public health budget, our public health nurse is an unbenefited position. There are a couple of graphs on page 141 that show some of our trending home visits by type over the last 10 years, I believe, as well as the health promotion activities by type. Also over the last 10 years. As mentioned, visit types are an important thing to follow and watch for trends, but more so admissions. The admission number overall is really what keeps our staff busy. Visits can vary per staff member, per discipline, and over insurance types. So that can be something that does change. For our public health with COVID in the last year, there have been 882 positive cases in the town of Acton that we have been following the majority of those. There are some that do go to the Community Tracing Collaborative based on there being a contact of someone outside of town who may have identified them as a direct contact. So that is followed by the Community Tracing Collaborative, who we appreciate their assistance. Of those 882 positive cases, there have been over 2,000 direct contacts that have been followed in the last year. Those are residents both within Acton and who were identified as contacts outside of Acton, where initial phone calls are made to those towns, not only to the residents, but also to the boards of health to notify them of an exposure out in the community. I'd just like to take a moment, over the last year, it has been such a challenge for everyone, but just to thank the management in Acton for all they've done to help support my staff. We really appreciate all they've done. I'd like to thank the IT department who have really made it a a nice shift to working in the office, which we typically do on a daily basis. But for myself, I've worked at home pretty much every weekend since this started, and IT has been fantastic with assisting with any issues that have come up. Setting up a phone line so that calls coming in come from the town of Acton and not some blocked number of a cell phone. So we really appreciate that. And again, to Cheryl Ball and her team for all their assistance over the last year. So on page 142 starts the nursing service budget, which is our VNA budget. The only change in this budget is the increase of 0.47. That is an increase in salaries, which is handled by position control. So overall, the budget has stayed where it was last fiscal year. And overall, the entire budget is a 0.33 increase. And then on page 144 is our public health budget. Again, 2.74 increase in salaries based on position control. The only change in this budget, I did decrease our medical supplies, which is line item 540250 by 4.71%. And that's related to our flu clinics. With the challenge of COVID, we did see a very, very sharp decrease in flu vaccines. We have to order in March of every year for the following flu season. So we typically do anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200 vaccinations this fall because of COVID, because we were all quarantined and people just didn't feel that comfort level. We only vaccinated, I believe, 378 people with flu vaccine, which was a huge decrease for us. So I did decrease that budget based on that to order less vaccine this year. And hopefully, I don't regret that. So overall, the public health budget has gone up 1.73%. And that is my overview. Do you have any questions?
Do you have any questions? I don't see any. Thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize, Jason.
Not a question, just thanks. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, sure. My pleasure, Jason.
Been a hell of a year. You deserve a round of applause.
Always happy to keep the community safe. Thank you.
Great job, Heather. Thank you for everything. So we're at the point in the program where we're going to take a 5-minute break unless the chairs want to take a longer break. I'll let the chairs decide that, and we can start back up with the police budget, which is found on page 146. Whenever the chairs say we're going to restart. What do we think?
5, Christine?
5 sounds great.
So that's 8:20.
We'll see you at 8:20.
Okay, thanks.
Do we have to do something special to call the meeting back?
No, I don't think so. Just make sure that everyone's accounted for, really, and then we can get started.
Could we have a few more FinCom members come on screen and wave their hands?
I'm here.
All right, we have FinCom quorum.
Great. Well, would you like to proceed?
Yes, please.
Okay, so thank you for that break. We're now going to continue with the rest of the budget presentations, and our first post-break presentation will be from the police department and its chief, Richard Burrows.
Good evening. Rich Burrows, your chief of police. June will mark 35 years in public service for me. I've been with the town for 8 years, and I've been your chief of police for the last 4 years. I'm going to cover police, dispatch, and the animal control budget. It's been a challenging year. We've had the men and women in the Acton Police Department and the dispatch center step up and provide exemplary service this year in the face of a lot of challenges. We've had to make a lot of changes on the fly. When the governor put his first travel order out last spring, I got a text from a sergeant in Florida bringing back his snowbird mother-in-law. And I think it was a Sunday afternoon or Saturday, and the travel advisory went into effect on Monday. So we had to do some quick thinking on how we're going to accommodate the quarantine. They weren't doing testing at that point. And we've made changes like that all along. We've made changes in dispatch protocols, asking callers for medicals if they've been traveling, if they've been exposed to people traveling, if they have a fever, and made adjustments all the way through to the police officers showing up on scene working with the fire department. Never in my 35 years have I worked so closely with the Board of Health and the nursing director as I have this year. They did a great job. Worked closely with the fire department on medicals and answering calls. And IT stepped up and helped us with our clerical staff. We spread our offices out throughout town buildings as they were empty to try to contain the spread if we did. Testament to the office's safety protocols and cleaning protocols. We had several officers test positive, but we didn't spread any throughout the building, and none of the officers caught it while they were working. All of them caught it off duty. The department hit a milestone this year. We got accredited in January after being certified back in 2019. Great job by the accreditation team to add over 250 additional standards to go from certification to accreditation. Jail diversion program is working well this year. We've had a lot of calls. Overall calls were down, but a lot of mental health calls this year with people struggling with the pandemic and the lack of social that we saw through all the different safety procedures throughout the community. We're actually working on a grant this week, see if we can add some more clinician hours to the town. I'll let you know how that works out. The hybrid fleet transition continues of our 11 frontline cruisers that we share through the officers and respond to emergencies. We have 6 of the 11 are hybrids, and we're looking hopefully to bring 2 more on next year. We continue to seek grants. We got over $25,000 through the National Highway Traffic Safety Association this year for different enforcements and some fixed radar signs. And we received almost $140,000 in grants through State 911 for dispatch. We're hoping in FY22 to get our community programs back up and running. We have a service dog, Zane, that's met people virtually. But it's not really the intent of the program for him to meet people virtually. He's a hands-on dog, so we're hoping to get him out in the community soon. He's been slowly getting involved in more and more things. He's been up at the Council on Aging for some of the drive-through events, and he's been in the schools since they've been opened. We'd like to do the Citizens Police Academy, Coffee with a Cop, and others. Police budget overall is up 2.78%, which is mostly contractual obligations. There's no real additions to the budget. Animal control is level funded. And dispatch actually is reduced a little bit. That's due to some personnel changes. And we have some newer dispatchers at lower steps. And I'm available to answer any questions if we have any.
Roland.
Good evening, Chief. In the transition that we're going over to hybrid vehicles, have we seen a cost savings or a reduction in fuel usage and fuel costs? I didn't see a line item in there specifically on fuel like I have in the past.
Yeah, the fuel comes under Corey's budget. He budgets the fuel for all the town vehicles. We've seen double miles per gallon in the hybrids versus the standard gas cruisers. And most of that is in idle time. When the cruisers are idling, the engine actually, once the battery's charged, it actually shuts the gas engine off and it runs on the electricity until it needs, and it'll turn the engine back on again. So that's what we're seeing the real savings.
Thank you. One other question. I'd love to see you do the Citizens Academy on a weekend once COVID is over. So I'd like to be able to take a part of that, but we're starting the week and working. It's impossible for me. So I'd like to see if that's maybe not next year or a year after, it would be great to do something like that for that academy.
That's good feedback. Thank you.
A lot of it's the citizens and maybe like scouting and stuff. Thank you.
Any other questions? Christine.
Hi, thank you. Just as I asked our fire chief, I'm curious if you feel the force is right-sized right now, and if we had an open checkbook, you know, what would be the right number if you thought you wanted to hire going forward to increase the size?
I actually think we're at a pretty good number right now. We're not quite to fully staffed yet. We just had one retirement in January, and we have one member who's on active service. But if we were fully staffed, we actually are at a pretty good number right now.
Okay, great, thank you.
Jim, did I see your hand up?
Yeah. So, Chief, policing across the country has been under such scrutiny because of all the, the police killings and the racial reckonings and the conversations that have happened. And I know you've been busy trying to figure out the right ways of responding to all that. And I wondered if you could say anything about what in particular has changed in the last year because of all that extra attention.
One of the biggest things is us getting accredited.
Mm-hmm.
By being accredited, we're showing that we're meeting the industry best practices for all of policing. As soon as we get accredited, we get a discount on our insurance.
Hmm.
The fact that the accreditation plaque is on the wall when our insurance company comes through to do a physical inspection of the building, they check off 2 of the larger pages because they know the fire extinguishers have been checked. There's an exit plan in the booking area. That there's a medical kit in the booking area. There's a medical kit, throughout the building. All the exits, egress. There's nothing blocking doors. All the doors work. They're functioning. All the exit signs are lit. So just getting accredited is really good in terms of making sure that you're meeting those best practices. There was a campaign out over the summer, 8 Can't Wait, talking about different things in a use of force policy. We had 7 of the 8 already in there, and we added the 8th. So part of that, and the mental health, our jail diversion program is huge for us. And we did the One Mind campaign a couple of years ago. So every single police officer in Acton has been through the 8-hour mental health first aid. We have 80% of the department through the 40-hour crisis intervention training. Only COVID is slowing us down. We should have been 5%. And we have the partnership with Elliott Mental Health, and we have an industry best practices policy for mental health. So we met the One Mind campaign, and that was back in 2016. The International Association of Chiefs of Police recognized the increased response to mental health and how can we best respond to it. And Our officers are highly trained. Our Section 12s are up, which is involuntary committal for mental health evaluation. But even though those numbers are up, they're not as high as they could be. I track the voluntary. We deal with somebody, they recognize they need to speak to somebody, a practitioner, and instead of us having to take them down, they volunteer to go on their own. That ties up less of our resources, and we're getting the same result. The person's getting some help. So all those things together, I think we're a little ahead of the game in terms of our response to the issues we're seeing in town.
Thanks.
Jason.
Thank you, Chief, for some of those stats that you just gave. In years past, we were also briefed on some of the statistics in town. And in particular, I'm curious how COVID has impacted the types and frequencies of crime in town. My understanding is that there are a whole lot of people spending a whole lot more hours at home than they used to. How has that flowed through from a policing perspective? And also one of the statistics that's usually quoted during these budget Saturdays on Tuesdays is was there any discharge of firearm by police officers in the last year?
We haven't had a firearm discharge by a police officer in over 30 years, I believe. The statistics this year, dispatch calls are down about 4,000. We did about 30,000 last year. We did 26,000 this past year. Assaults are down, B&Es are down, people are home more. Domestics were actually down. I don't suspect that there was less domestic violence, but just it was reported less. And we got crushed with identity theft, the unemployment fraud. All the people that got their identities were used to file fraudulent unemployment claims. We had a huge rash of those through the town, both town employees and people in private industry.
Thank you for that information.
Adam.
Yes, very simple question. Since you mentioned dispatch and also Chief Fire mentioned dispatch, just out of curiosity, when we dial 911, who does it go to first?
Certainly. Within the past 2.5 years, we have taken on the wireless calls for the town of Acton. If you dial 911 on your cell phone, as long as the phone itself is capable, the carrier is capable, and there's some geographical information, it'll hit one of the towers in Acton, and it'll come directly into the Acton dispatch center. If it doesn't meet all those, it'll go to the regional and then get redirected. But we are catching most of the wireless calls right in the dispatch center.
Did that answer your question, Adam?
I think so. And so from there, if it's a fire call, then does it go out to the fire dispatch? Or do you dispatch all of them from your premises?
The dispatchers that are answering the phone at the public safety facility are trained to dispatch both police, fire, and because the fire department covers the ambulance, both basic life support and advanced life support, those dispatchers dispatch right from the public safety facility.
So they're all in the same room, basically.
They are.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. I was just curious.
Yep, no problem.
Roland.
How are salaries determined for, or when you pay, I should say, for a dispatcher? You know, is it charged to each department? So if it's a fire call, you check one for fire, police, that type of thing. Ambulance, does it divide it out that way, or is it just a municipal budget?
It's just the communications budget for all these services. There's one, we have 2 dispatchers on at all times. And then the records management system, as they enter the units, we can keep track of which fire units responded to what, which police units responded, which ambulance responded. That's all tracked through the computer-aided dispatch.
Thank you.
Sahana.
Just following up on the dispatch. I know you guys did a study sometime back on regionalizing with Concord. Can you let me know a little bit more about that study, and is it something that the town is pursuing? Is it going to happen anytime soon? And if there are any cost savings with that?
So the regional study came back. I believe the town manager presented that to the select board a couple months ago, and it came back that the feasibility of combining Acton and Concord dispatch was worth doing. That we'd see increased service to both communities. The focus wasn't on cost savings, but there might be some cost savings at some point.
My understanding, having looked into this a little further, is that not to expect cost savings, but we will get more for what we're paying. And that this is a project that is currently going forward. We could talk about whether we would like Mr. Mangiarotti to come in and discuss this with us further, but you can learn a lot about it if you go watch part of the February 22nd Board of Selectmen meeting. Any other questions? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Nice work. Our next presentation will be from the Department of Public Works, which is overseen by Director Corey York. Corey, tell us about the department and all the different operations that you are running over there.
Good evening. Some of you may know I'm Corey York. I'm the director for the Department of Public Works. I've been here a little over 26 years. Within the department, we also have Carl Maria, who's our DPW operations superintendent. He's been here almost 23 years. Chinru Pang, who's our town engineer. She's been here 9 years. She's just recently been promoted to this position in the last couple of months or so. And then we have Andrea Steen, who's our public facility superintendent. She's been here a little over 34 years. Just a quick overview of the services of the department. Public Works is essentially responsible for the maintenance, upkeep, and operation of our town buildings and our public infrastructure like roadways, sidewalks, sewers, things like that. We also support several other town departments with their operational needs, such as we help the town clerks with the setup for elections and town meetings. We help recreation and natural resources with some of their projects. We assist the health department with their hazardous waste day events, and we work quite a bit with police and fire, dealing with traffic matters or emergency situations, whether it's a road closure due to an accident or a storm event. In our daily duties, we're communicating with the abutting communities and our public utilities, trying to coordinate upcoming projects. And most recently, we've been working with the new sustainability coordinator, just getting familiar with our operations and how we can coordinate moving forward. So it's been kind of an interesting new project, so it's been good. Just looking at our organizational chart, which we have on page 160, within the DPW, we have about a total of 35 FTEs within the total department. Divisionally, we're broken down into several different divisions. We have our administrative division, we have engineering, fleet maintenance, the highway road crews, public facilities. We have our wastewater treatment operation, which is contractual staff that we use down there. And we also have our transfer station and recycling and the trees and grounds. As we get into the budgets, we have several different ones, but starting with engineering on page 163, you go to that budget, the total budget increase was about 1.76%, but there were no major changes within the budget. That was mostly related to position control. As you turn to page 167, as you get into the highway budget, this budget is predominantly salaries for highway fleet and administration and the trees and grounds. Probably the one noted change that you'll see in there, there was a change in the contractual services. That line item is used to hire cranes and bucket trucks and stump grinding and other trees and grounds related services. What we found in our latest contract we put off for tree work, for whatever reason, the contractual bucket truck work drastically increased since our last contract. So what we were looking at, I think on average, we're typically spending around $30,000 a year for bucket truck work. So we're proposing to reallocate $25,000 to our machinery budget. And what that would do is we're looking into the acquisition of our own bucket truck. So this would allow the crew to do the majority of this kind of work with our in-house staff, gives them a much more flexibility to coordinate the work based on our needs and schedules. And we'll be able to do more work than what's going to happen with the way the contractual prices are happening. What you'll see with that budget, that budget's increased by a little over 3.8%. As you go into page 169, it goes to our roads budget. We use this budget primarily for the repair and upkeep and construction related to traffic signage, paving projects, and other infrastructure related needs. You'll note we have one line item for guardrail repair and improvement. We eliminated the funding in that line item. I think it was about $3,600. What we've been fortunate to be able to do in recent years is most of the guardrail damage we've been running across, we've been able to cover the cost of the repairs through insurance claims through the accident report. So we've been able to, in prior years, there wasn't always an accident claim that we could get, but lately that's been predominantly where it's been fixed. So we've been able to eliminate that. But so that budget's been decreased by about 2.25%. Our next line item budget is on page 170, which is our snow and ice. That budget handles our winter maintenance operations for the town roads. The only major change you see in there is under the mail stipends, and that's just to account for the collective bargaining agreement. The budget itself has increased by a little under 0.5%. The next line item that you see is on page 171. It's our fuel budget. This is what we pay for gas and diesel and the related costs for that for all the town vehicles and equipment. So all the different departments that are fueling her, this is where you'll see those fuel costs that are coming up. We did make an adjustment this year where we reduced the line item for gasoline. Now that the police are coming online with their hybrids, and the town manager is looking into acquisition of more electric vehicles on the town side. We kind of projected a reduction based on what we'll be getting in the next coming year. So the total budget's been reduced by about 4.25% on that one. On our machinery budget on page 172, this budget is essentially used by our fleet division. It's used for the town vehicles and equipment for maintenance and upkeep. So they maintain all the entire town fleet and equipment, but it excludes the fire department. They handle their equipment separately from us. So the one change you'll see there is in the capital outlay, and that's the $25,000 that we took from our highway budget and put it into our capital outlay for the acquisition of the bucket truck. This line item is typically where we have the program for our replacement of our sort of heavy construction dump trucks, spreaders and things like that. So right now you'll see the budget increase in that budget is about 8.6%. The next one that we have under the highway on page 173, this budget is our special projects. It's we utilize this for various large equipment rentals. We have money in there for some of our sidewalk program and our stormwater management program. So we don't have there's no changes in this budget, so there's no increases or decreases there. What I'll do is I'll hand this over to Andrea Christine right now. She'll go through the public facilities, and then I'll follow up with the sewer and the transfer station.
Hold on, Andrea. Hit the mute, unmute, I mean.
Sorry. So good evening to the Select Board and Finance Committee members. Thank you for having us present to you tonight. My name is Andrea Ristine, and as Corey mentioned, I've worked for the Town of Acton for a little more than 34 years. And our Department of Public Facilities is under the division of DPW and Corey York. Briefly, I do want to applaud the health, nursing, IT, police, and fire departments for their extreme challenges during the pandemic. We've had a few of our own in public facilities. We have a total of 7 full-time employees, a crew leader, craftsman, 4 custodians, and myself. The main focus of the division is construction, maintenance, repair, and utilities of town-owned buildings. We've done many improvements with help of the CARES Act funds, with door openers, touchless fixtures, sinks, or faucets, toilets, dispensers, some door holders and door openers. We've also done HVAC upgrades in buildings where possible. And we were able to acquire electrostatic sprayers to help us apply antibacterial disinfectant throughout buildings regularly and as requested if there's an additional need. I also look forward to completing the North Acton Fire Station project with the Chief Hart. It's been exciting so far. Our budget public facilities is 01192, starting on page 174, going through page 178 of the town manager's recommended budget. Overall, our services has increased 2.2%, mainly due to electricity, which I'll touch on a bit in a minute. Total supplies is down 5% based on actuals and transfer of trees and grounds supplies and services to the highway department. Salaries is a total of 34% of my budget and has been reduced by 10.5% due to the transition of trees and grounds employees. Other supplies have decreased 5% based on actuals of the past couple of years. Protective clothing is a decrease, again, due to transition and other equipment. The electricity bill, or the electricity bills, the budget has increased approximately 20%. In transitioning, we're planning on transitioning over to 100% Power Choice program, 100% green. And it also includes an estimate for what the new North Acton Fire Station will cost for electricity. It'll be an all electricity building with no natural gas, and we are putting solar on the roof. So it's all engineers' estimates at this time. Water's increased 13% based on actuals. Town Hall has converted to low flow toilets this year. And street lighting, we've changed. We're gonna keep an eye on that and the electricity account because we're adjusting everything. And watch it closely for adjustments as necessary. And we certainly have enough to cover the facilities budget and our utilities and streetlights. There are some proposed improvements under capital property improvements for the town hall flooring and design and engineering for future HVAC replacements at the PSF. It's quickly approaching its 20-year life expectancy. So we need to start looking into the total cost of what that will be within the next 3 to 4 years. I've pretty much covered any major changes within my budgets and wonder if anybody has any questions.
Roland.
Thanks, Andrea. I was wondering, what is the driver of the fare increase by over 13%? And also, on another note, when you are looking at replacing the HVAC system, I'm hoping that you'll be able to go to geothermal, like the new schools, et cetera, with the public safety building, if that's a possibility. I don't know if that is, but hopefully that will be one.
Yeah, we are considering that. We'll have to have an engineer look at it to see if it's actually feasible and doable. And I'm sorry, you cut out. What was the question about the 13%?
What was the driver of the increase in the water of 13%?
It's based on actuals over the past 2 years.
Basically just a rate increase on what we've actually been using versus what.
Right. And as you know, FY20's, I kind of thrown a few things out the door there because of COVID. We have some less use due to less visitors, but there's still many employees still coming to work. They all need water.
Sahana, is your hand still up from previous, or do you have a question for this one?
No, I don't.
Same question for you, Adam.
Yes, please, from Mr. York. What's the expected cost of the bucket truck?
We've been doing some investigations, and it seems like it's coming in around 150, 160,000 for a dump truck. So we do a lease to own program similar to our dump truck. So we pay over 5 years. So it would be the cost that we typically pay the contractors. It would be the annual payment. So our return investment would be basically the 5 years it would take us to pay off the truck.
And does that cost you've analyzed also include the annual insurance cost for the vehicle and the liability for the vehicle and its operation?
Yeah, we've looked into licensing in that. Because it's because of the size and that there's not a lot of additional parameters that we're finding. So it should be inclusive of that.
And is that truck going to be operated using current FTEs from the department, or do you have to hire additional or specialized FTEs to operate the vehicle and do the tree work?
Within the existing FTEs, it's the crew that we have now are qualified to operate it.
So it's really just the cost of the truck, and that cost is going to offset the services that you've had to hire in the past. Great.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Dean.
Hey, a couple of questions. First, for Corey, since you're there. Question on the vehicle repairs. Specifically, I know in the past there's been a radio network in all of the public works vehicles, and sometimes those were problematic as far as whether they're working and whether they're interoperable with public safety dispatch. What's the status of the radio network now?
The system that we had before, we abandoned. Like you said, it was very problematic. We were constantly repairing, and the dependability wasn't that good. Over the years with phones, we've been able to supplement that with phones, but we are working with IT. We wanted to re-implement for redundancy, especially storm events. It's be able to reach a lot of everyone. So sometimes the cell phones don't always work well, but they were in the process of working on the technology with emergency personnel, and I think they're fine-tuning that. And there was a frequency for non-emergency that they're working through right now. But the goal is that we'll be reestablishing a radio communication that's cohesive with the emergency personnel, so we can communicate during storm events.
Okay, yeah, I'd encourage you to pursue that, because obviously the storm events, and then you have a major 9/11 kind of thing when everybody's on the cell phone, and the next thing you know, nobody can get through. So I think it's important that we do have that level of redundancy.
It's unfortunate that IT and police and fire have portables that we've been able to use in the short term. So we have had that capability, but we wanted to have something a little bit more permanent for the crew. So
Okay, thanks. My next couple of questions are probably more appropriate to Andrea. I noticed there's a substantial decrease in the budget for street lighting, and I believe you're accessing excess money that has been accumulating as a result of the landfill solar project. I think it's the Palo Verde accounts. And my question is, it's great to use that money. What's going to happen next year? Will this expenditure that you're taking this year, is that going to use up the entire balance, or is that something we can see in future years?
Again, we're going to be watching this year and potentially be changing the Schedule Z again. We just changed it 2 months ago. So you'll see a change one way or another for sure next year.
Okay. Kind of along the same lines, talking about the solar installations. I believe the one on the roof of the Public Works building is probably up in excess of 10 years, maybe approaching 15 years. Is there any plans to replace that? Has there been a decrease in the amount of electricity being generated from it as the panels deteriorate? And what's the long-term plan on that? Or just the one on top of the DPW building itself? I know the landfill one is much newer.
Yes, thank you. We haven't, I don't know what the deterioration rate is. I can definitely tell you there was a few months this year that we had less sunny days. So we received less net meter credits, paid less to Nexamp, and had to pay more towards the Eversource bill. So as you know, every meter we have has 2 electric bills. One's for Palo Verde or Nexamp, and the other is for Eversource. Another thing, we haven't really started working on looking at replacement of it. If the DPW building renovations or replacement happens, we have to evaluate that then with any new facility. So Corey and I will probably be working on that in the next year.
Okay.
I don't remember the actual year, but we still have more than several to go before that contract runs out, the PPA.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
David.
Yes. Corey, I noticed that there's $12,000 budgeted for sidewalks, but I know we spend much more than that. Where does the other money come from? Is that Chapter 90 money, or where does that rest come from?
It comes from a combination. We had, like I said, we only have 12,000 in the operating budget, but we have operating capital that the town manager had. So we appropriated a sum at town meeting last year. Our goal is to build a sidewalk this spring. We were hoping it would be Great Road. We're working with MapStar right now, which is one of our top priorities. So, but it's been coming from capital. It is Chapter 90 eligible. A lot of that work, Chapter 90 funding, has been going to road paving, trying to keep the road conditions up to what people expect. And then we also have contributions from local developments. So it comes from a few different ways.
Thank you.
Jason.
I'm sorry, I think I may have misunderstood. Did you say something about, what did you say about the 20-year lifespan at the PSF? Was that a component or was that the building?
That's the expected life of a year average HVAC units. I would typically call them rooftop units, but these HVAC units, there's 6 of them and they're all on the ground level. And they cost a lot of money when they start getting old for repairs.
So
the library, we replaced the HVAC units there a little over 20 years, and we were nursing them along. It's just the life expectancy of the equipment.
So it's strictly the HVAC components that you're talking about, correct?
Yes.
Is that part, I'm sorry, I've not fully studied the capital improvement plan. Is that already captured in the capital improvement plan?
Within overall, yes, for the 10-year plan. But right now it's just trying to get a design and engineering review evaluation done to see if we need to change anything. I'm kind of guessing that we will probably have a slight change for the dispatch area. That's got its own unit to itself because of the proposed regionalization. They're going to be increasing the amount of staff in there at any given time. So we might have to change airflow calculations, which would involve better equipment, bigger equipment, different.
And it's not currently failing. This is just a discovery line, correct?
Yes, because we know they're expected to live about 20 years. So I don't want to be caught with less than a year to try and figure it out and not have capital budgeted.
Thank you.
Mike.
Yeah, quick question about streetlights. Will all new streetlights be following the dark sky protocol?
Can you clarify what you mean by dark sky?
So the excess light does not reflect up into the atmosphere, so you can see maybe have a half decent chance of seeing the stars in the sky. It's light pollution is what I'm saying.
All of the current LEDs that we've changed, which is all the streetlights in town, there's different wattages based on if it's a main street or a side street. As you know, they're still down. Right, and they're all facing down, so they're not a bulb, so it goes out at all. It shoots down.
Jason.
Okay. Yeah, just to reiterate what Mr. Majors was saying, I believe there's a specific Kelvin range that we're supposed to adhere to be in compliance with, and I'm assuming he's curious to know that is also being adhered to as well.
They were all replaced before I took this position, but I know that was definitely considered when we were doing them. There was a study done, or at least an evaluation done for the wattage and the color.
Definitely remember that town hall. I definitely remember that town meeting was quite a tour de force from that specialist who stood up at town meeting.
I was not in attendance, so I didn't get to see the fireworks, but
she won.
Dean won.
With the switch to more of an electric fleet, is there somewhere that the cost of that electricity is measured? Because we have the nice line item for gas and diesel. Is there somewhere that we're capturing the cost of the electricity for the new vehicles?
I think for the vehicles that will be plug-ins, we have charge point units that are network based, so they track the electric consumption. So they'll be that way. And I think for just the pure hybrids, I'm not an expert in all this, but it'd really just be the fuel consumption of what they're using less of, which we can look at by department within the fuel system. So as police are bringing theirs on this year, we should be able to monitor over the course of the year how their fuel consumption, so and see what the difference.
Anyone else? Thank you.
I'd just like to add the PPA was dated 2010 for the solar rooftop at the DPW. So we're 11 years in at this point.
Great. Well, thank you. So that's Public Works, right? Thank you. Nice work, Corey. Is there anything else we were going to cover there?
We have the sewer and transfer station, just to go through quick.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, so you turn to page 180, we have this sewer enterprise budget. This is the budget that we use for the maintain and operate the town sewer system. A couple of years ago, we had instituted a comprehensive plan evaluation of the treatment facility, the pump stations, and the infrastructure. The facility itself is 20 years old, so what we wanted to do is start looking at the operations holistically and coming up with a planning tool of what we really need to start focusing on to make sure we ensure the integrity of the system for the next 15, 20 years. So we went to that process, and we've been working on the preliminary design right now, and we've established sort of the different goals that we need to work on to ensure that we keep the system running efficiently and safely. A lot of the upgrades that we're talking about are repairs and replacements of various pumps, as well as upgrading the disinfection system for the effluent to go through, as well as critical needs going through our batch reactors and other equipment as the various control systems that kind of monitor all the systems to make sure everything's working right and properly. So we have money in the budget, enterprise budget this year to do the final design and looking at the cost of some other capital repairs and other needs. One of the things that we're looking into with everything that's been going on is looking at funding opportunities for the actual construction of the project. We've been fortunate, we've been able to leverage quite a bit of funding through our MassWorks projects on Route 62 and contributions from our local development on 62 that will help to lower the expected impact for the sewer. So what we're hoping to do is by proceeding now with this work, we'll be able to secure some state revolving funding, and it better positions the town to help us seek additional stimulus funding as it becomes available. On our other enterprise budget through the transportation and recycling, on page 183, this is the budget that handles our municipal trash and recycling program. Probably the biggest change you'll see there is in the trash removal and recycling line items. We adjusted those line items to account for what we're seeing for trends within our own operations and the market projections. So you'll see we reduced the trash disposal costs in that line item, and we actually had to increase our recycling because of the cost of recycling has been increasing quite a bit over the last few years. And then the last item you'll see that's an adjustment in there is our capital outlay. What we're doing there is we're adjusting that for a replacement of a tractor that hauls our trash from the facility. So it's down a little bit. So, but that's what we're proposing to do in that budget. Those are the last two enterprise programs that we have through the DPW. If you have any questions related to that, you can address those.
Any questions? Roland.
Corey, question on styrofoam. Is that going to come back at any point to recycle that, or is that just going to not come back anymore?
Carl and I are talking. We're trying to find a new approach, and I think with the weather improving now, we'll be able to try something. It'll have to be a different way we're doing it to try to get the material sorted and clean that the vendor will take it. But we're hopeful that we'll try some approaches, and I'm sure it'll be a hit or miss. But we're hoping to try to institute that back sometime later this spring or summer.
Anyone else?
One other question: regular batteries that you throw in the trash. Is there any way that can be recycled, or is there a business out there that's looking to start that or anything? It's
The alkaline batteries?
Yes.
Not that I'm aware of, but I work with different vendors and talk with the DEP and that, so I can always see what, if there's anything out there. But as of everything that I understand right now, I don't think there are other streams.
Thank
you. Last chance? Steve.
Yeah, Corey. So what has been the impact of the pandemic on the flow at the sewer system? Is it up? Is it down?
I would have expected to be up with a lot more people home, but I don't think it's been overly a dramatic change. So when I look at the multi-years, it seems to be in the same realm. So I don't think it's been too much of a change for us.
Yeah, the North Acton treatment plant, we've seen no increase in residential and a big drop, obviously, in commercial.
Yeah, and that might have been the balance for us, where it's a lot more residential and a lot less, unfortunately, for the commercial. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just curious what you were seeing.
All right. I don't see any more hands. I think that's it.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey and team. Jen, Andrea, thank you very much. Carl, I know you're out there somewhere, Carl. So why don't we move to everybody's favorite budget, Town Manager's Office. And I will start. So the Town Manager's budget is on page 185. Town Manager's Office is myself, Mark Hall, Assistant Town Manager, Lisa Tommel, the Executive Assistant, Austin Zianowicz, Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, Laura Ducharme, who is the Community Services Director, the Human Services Assistant, which is actually an administrative position that works over at 30 Sudbury, which is currently vacant. That's also part of our office. And then our newest addition is our Sustainability Director. And you'll hear from a few of those folks following this. The increase in the budget this year in the town manager's budget is partly due to the new position that we've added. And it's also, we have some unsettled collective bargaining agreements that we're funding in here. Overall, the total budget is up significantly, but it's primarily due to the compensation that's in this budget that will then be spread out to other departments once they're settled. Which is why, which was the same thing that happened last year. But so it looks like a bigger increase than it actually is. That's the town manager's budget, and other items of note, there aren't many. So I think I could go next to something exciting that we've done in the last year is we added a new position, the sustainability director. The sustainability budget is shown in this budget book on the next page. It used to be called the Green Advisory Board budget. We just kind of changed the name and reallocated the resource. But I'd like to introduce. Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. Everyone's presentation was really crisp, so I'm making up for it. But before we move on to Andrea, I'd like to go to Mark Hall because the town meeting budget is a big part of what we do in our office. And Mark, is there anything of note that you wanted to mention about the town meeting budget?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it is a small budget, but with the setup and cost and operation of town meetings, it's considerably dramatically changed in the last year, and hopefully that's going to be temporary. But like I mentioned earlier in IT, the bulk of those increased costs were all borne through the CARES funding, and that will be continued through this year, as far as I know. So our plan is to continue this June's annual town meeting, much like we did the last two town meetings of 2020. So in this budget, we account for some of the expenses of 2 normal town meetings, one annual and one special, that would take place in a normal year. This doesn't factor in anything to do with, the outside venue. There may be some rental chairs that we rent for a normal town meeting, but not as many as we have been. And the changes in the budget that you see, that eliminated the rental of the handheld clickers. We actually own most of them now. Hopefully we'll be able to go back to using them someday. But really, it's a very simple budget for a very complex operation, and lots of thanks to all the departments that come out of all the nooks and crannies of the town to help us, including the schools. So thank you.
Nice work, Mark. We are planning to do an inside-outside town meeting again. It was a big hit last year, so we will be continuing to work on that, and Mark and many others that make that day happen are already underway planning for that. So as I mentioned earlier, I'd like to introduce Andrea Becerra. She's our Director of Sustainability, who started not too long ago, but she's been off to a quick start. And Andrea, welcome, and please introduce your budget here.
Thanks, John. Good evening. Very excited to be at my first budget workshop. As John mentioned, my name is Andrea Becerra, and I'm the first sustainability director for the town of Acton. And I've been here for 2 months now. I'm based in the Red House right next to Town Hall. My office is right next to Andrea Ristines, the public facilities superintendent. The mission of the Sustainability Office is to promote actions that reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, prioritize climate resilient infrastructure, enhance nature-based solutions, and advance sustainability initiatives across multiple sectors. So a significant portion of my work will entail coordinating across departments to provide a sustainability lens and perspective across various projects. The sustainability work we take on will be aligned with the climate emergency declaration passed at the town meeting on September 8th, 2020, with an overwhelming margin of support. Because I'm new, you won't see anything too exciting on the sustainability budget on page 192. That being said, so far we have applied for funding from the Mass EVIP Fleets Incentive Program for a level 3 fast charger for Veterans Ball Field. We've submitted a project scope and letter signed by the members of the Select Board for MAPC Technical Assistance Program TAP funding for the Climate Action Plan. We've applied for the MAPC Accelerating Resilience Program with the Department of Public Works, Natural Resources, and Parks and Rec to support a tree planting initiative to provide shading for the playground on Jones Field, and a technical assessment to identify nature-based solutions and green infrastructure initiatives and priorities that advance the town's equitable climate resilience. We've submitted a letter of interest for an MVP action grant to seek more technical support on our climate action plan. We are also coordinating with the Acton Boxborough Regional School District for a Green Communities Grant application, which the town of Acton has been receiving annually for the last decade, to cover installation costs for the highest energy consuming school and municipal buildings, and to support the purchase of 2 hybrids and the lease of a hybrid and an electric vehicle to replace 4 gas-powered vehicles in the municipal fleet. We're also working with Corey York, the Director of Public Works, who you just heard, to submit a Sustainable Material Recovery Program grant to reduce the waste in our municipal buildings. Finally, we have also participated in grant applications for multi-regional efforts. This includes an effort led by NATIC to support a regional residential climate program to help build on best practices of the Massachusetts CEC Solarize Mass and Heat Smart programs. And an initiative spearheaded by a nonprofit organization called ORS to protect, improve, and preserve the Assabet, Sudbury, and Concord River to improve collaboration and information sharing. And that's about it. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Do we have any questions? Well, I don't see any. Thank you.
Roland has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Roland.
Thank you. Several years ago, town did a program with New England Clean Energy where we worked with them installing solar in homes. And if you hit certain tiers, you got certain low prices. I don't know if there's anything in the future that you're looking at doing anything like that, if that's still a program the state offers or what have you. But I'd be interested to see if we do anything like that in the future.
We haven't, or at least in my position right now, I haven't looked deeply into what sort of programs are out there. What I have done is, like, for example, in our latest municipal monthly, we talked about the different options people have for pursuing solar incentives to install solar on their roofs. But beyond that, in terms of like establishing something new, we haven't. It's more just been pushing people to the right information at this point. But I'm excited about everything at this stage, so excited to explore anything that might make it easier for people to install solar on their roofs. So curious to learn more about that program in particular, so I'd be happy to connect outside of this, and feel free to shoot additional ideas, or if you can actually tell me the name that you just mentioned. What was it? New England?
It was New England Clean Energy. They're out of Sutton, I believe. Thank you.
All right, I'm looking better now, and I don't see any hands up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. So next, I'd like to introduce Austin Siganowicz, who's our Director of Intergovernmental Relations. He oversees our transportation program, amongst many other responsibilities that he fills for the organization. Austin, tell us about the transportation program.
Thank you, John. Good to see everyone. Again, my name is Austin Siganowicz. I've been working here in the town manager's office for nearly 2 years now. And my budget is on page 193. So as John said, one of my responsibilities is oversight of the transportation service within the community. For many years, as you all know, Acton has provided an impressive array of options for residents to maximize their mobility, not only within the community, but as well the regional economy. Certainly this year, or the past year, without question, the transportation industry, if anyone is following the news and the MBTA across the country, has been severely impacted by the pandemic, and Acton is not an exception to that. So the services that we operate during normal times are, we have our demand response services, otherwise known as the Minutevan or Dial-A-Ride. We also have fixed route services, the Acton Rail Shuttle and the Cross Acton Transit. Due to the pandemic, we had to institute several modifications to our service and safety measures to protect our drivers, but most importantly, to protect the community. As you know, especially our demand response services, we take pride in transporting a lot of our vulnerable populations, student populations, elderly population. Transportation is something that they rely on. So after noticing a significant reduction in usage of the commuter rail at the South Acton station, we suspended the fixed route services, which include the CAT and the rail shuttle. We are continuing to operate to this day. Our demand response services, however, and ridership has been steady throughout the pandemic. Some key performance measures that we operate upon mostly revolve around ridership. And of course, as you would expect, ridership has decreased as the demand for the public transportation has dropped, as folks have either sought alternative transportation methods or have simply stayed home, among other possibilities. To date, for this fiscal year, Acton's demand response services, again, those are the only ones we're operating at this time, have served just more than 4,500 trips. And just to give you a little bit of context, the number at this same time last year, actually we'll go back a little bit before the pandemic, was over 10,000 trips. Significant reduction there. Over 50% of our trips are either for medical employment purposes. We also, take a lot of people to, go get their groceries, any sort of essential purpose, essential trip over the past year, we've continued to serve that. And I'm also proud to say seniors are still, I think, active in using our transportation. Normally, we operate at about 75% of our trips are seniors. The past year has been about 50%, which I think is still a great number. So my budget, my request for this fiscal year is $542,420, which represents a 10.73% decrease from the prior year request. Now, this request will still provide all of the services that you're familiar with to the community, which also includes eventually reintroducing the rail shuttle back into service as we continue to monitor the MBTA's ridership. Anyone who drives by the commuter lot now sees that there's still not really a demand for that commuter rail, and that rail shuttle, of course, is dependent upon commuter rail ridership. So the 12% decrease that you'll notice on the contractual service line item accounts for just simply a reorganization in the rail shuttle service. There's actually a route within the rail shuttle that hits North Acton. Previously, we would split up our staffing. We had additional staffing in the morning and the evening to cover that route. And talking with our vendor, we can actually reorganize that service a little bit and use existing staffing and vehicles to improve that service. I'm proud of this budget. I think this budget also, continues to provide great service, not only to our daily responsibilities, demand response, and our fixed routes, but over the past year, we've also partnered with, for example, the Acton Food Pantry to deliver meals to residents. We've also, you may have seen the bus at some of our locally hosted vaccine clinics. We were able to have a shuttle for residents for the vaccine clinic. This budget will also continue to provide the matching funding for a micro-transit pilot that will be launching over the next several weeks. You may have seen that on the town website. That's some great news. Grant that we received from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, where we'll be partnering with local taxi companies to provide supplemental transportation service to our existing services. Now, what that means is if our buses are full and we can't serve the rider, instead of saying no, we will partner with the local taxi company to still provide that ride. Also, this service, I'm excited to say, will also expand our transportation opportunities for night and weekends, which has long been identified as a transportation gap within our existing services. So I'm excited for that. So in sum, of course, among everyone else, transportation has been, struggling, I think, industry-wide. But I'm proud that we've been able to accomplish a lot over the past year within transportation, and to especially continue the opportunity to serve our most vulnerable population and the residents of Acton. So thank you. And of course, happy to answer any questions.
Jason.
Thank you very much. Mr. Skanowitz and Mr. Mangiarati, I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. Looking at the documentation that you have in your budget, if I'm reading this properly, the transportation fund on page 194 is running about $370,000 under budget. Understood that there's still another quarter to go. Running about $370,000 under budget on that one alone, and then the Crosstown Connect is running $180,000 under budget. Does that mean that approximately $500,000 worth of turnbacks are due to occur strictly from the transportation aspect of the municipal budgets?
I'll start with the enterprise fund first. The enterprise fund, as I mentioned, Mr. Cole, the enterprise fund is actually operating again at reduced service levels at this time. Again, our fixed routes are not operating. One of our demand response services that is connected to one of those fixed routes is also not operating. So we do have some cost savings there. So yes, you will see, for example, in the enterprise fund, you will see some fund balance there. The revolving fund, Crosstown Connect, that supports the dispatch center for Crosstown Connect, but also the TMA operations for Crosstown Connect. That $180,000 not only, like I said, pays for both of those what they call soft services, but some of those revenues are not actually coming all from Acton per se. We have membership dues from our various public and private partners. I would say taking a look at the revolving fund, I'll have to take a look at our expenditures. I want to say those expenditures are actually probably in the enterprise fund at this time and may just need to be reclassified as, of course, we've continued to operate the dispatch center and the TMA at reduced staffing levels. We instituted that measure in the pandemic as well.
Just looks like that's definitely a source of turnback for this current fiscal year.
Yeah,
a significant source of turnback.
Absolutely. We will definitely see some sort of fund balance for the enterprise fund, especially.
It wouldn't be a general fund turnback. It stays within the enterprise.
I refer back to my very first comment of the night, which is please provide balances for enterprise funds so that we have a full understanding of all of the buckets of money held by the town.
Mr. Martin?
I just wanted to point out to Jason that the fund is in the upper left corner of each balance sheet, or each of the spreadsheet tables, and only when it says general fund would it be turned back.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I fully understand the difference between turnback and not, but I also have on numerous occasions made the statement that balances held in general funds, enterprise funds, and revolving funds all represent at some level a level of generalized reserves as held by the town.
Great, thank you. So, sorry, Chrissy.
Go ahead. I assume there are no more questions. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I was talking to myself there. James McRae is our Veteran Services Officer. He also serves the town of Boxborough as part of regionalization that we implemented here a few years ago. James, sorry for making you go last. Could you share with us your budget this year and any other highlights you'd like to discuss?
Hi, good evening. Can anyone see me? Looks like
We can hear you, but not see you. There you are.
I got it. Good evening, everyone. I'm James McRae. I'm the District Director of Veteran Services for Acton and Boxborough. I've worked for the town of Acton for, it'll be 10 years come November, and I think we took on Boxborough as well about a year and a half ago. My whole job revolves around assisting veterans and surviving spouses with state and federal benefits. My primary duty is to assist veterans and surviving spouses with a state benefit known as Chapter 115 assistance for any single veteran or surviving spouse whose income is less than $2,200 a month. And there are also some asset limit criteria as well. At the very least, I'm able to provide them with monthly medical cost reimbursements. So this includes reimbursements of medical costs such as Medicare B, Medicare D, any supplemental coverage above and beyond that, MedX, Blue Cross Blue Shield, prescriptions, hospital copays, doctor copays, things of that nature. If their income is significantly lower or none at all than the income threshold, based on their income, how much they pay for rent, if they pay for heat, what their family size is, I'm able to provide them with a monetary monthly benefit to help make ends meet for these individuals. So that's my primary duty. I also help veterans with lost or missing discharge papers, help with applying for wartime bonuses, assistance with educational benefits, assistance submitting claims for VA pensions, submitting claims for service-connected disabilities, burial benefits, assistance in obtaining and navigating the VA healthcare system. Those are some of the main ones. There are other benefits as well. I also assist veterans and surviving spouses troubleshooting various issues that come across my desk, get them in contact with various resources and nonprofits that may be able to assist them further. I perform various forms of outreach, which include mailings and utilizing ActonTV and other outlets such as that perform presentations pre-COVID. Hope to get back to that shortly. I also coordinate and oversee Veterans Day ceremonies, Memorial Day parade and ceremonies, flag retirement ceremonies, and other various events that may come across from time to time. My budget, excluding salaries, is a 0% increase in any portion of my budget. I would like to point out that the last line item on my budget, veterans benefits, that's the portion of my budget where the Chapter 115 as assistance is funded through. And I just want to let everyone know that 75% of what we pay out is refunded by the state to the townships. So, are there any questions?
Any questions? Roland.
James, I want to thank you, especially during this COVID time. You were able to, my father-in-law contacted you and you got him over to the VA, and I brought him over there and got his COVID shots. And, you know, it's a great resource for you to be doing what you do to the citizens of the veteran citizens of the town. And I want to thank you.
Oh, I appreciate the support, and that's outstanding. I'm glad we were able to help your father out.
Mike.
Yeah, I just want to add to that I've used Jim's services. He has been very helpful, and I'm proud to have him part of our community. And I recommend that any other veterans in the area really take advantage of Jim's services, because he really goes above and beyond, and very helpful. Thank you, Jim.
Well, thank you for that, Mike. I really appreciate the support again.
How is the regionalization with Boxborough working?
It's going very well. It was busy at first, the first 5 months, and then COVID hit, and you know, everybody kind of hunkered down. And what you need to keep in mind is that the majority of the veteran population, really in any given town in the Commonwealth, are seniors, and it's the most vulnerable population. So there were a couple waves when the cases were high where no one wanted to really go and do anything. But, you know, we're hoping to get back there. It was busy over the summer. It's starting to get busy again. And especially with, in recent months, the VA has outperformed the private sector in terms of these COVID vaccinations. You know, when the threshold was 75 and older on the private side, it was 65 and older on the VA's healthcare side, and then shortly went to 55 and older. And then a month and a half ago, they opened it up to veterans of all ages. And as these progressions happened, I had been doing one-page mailings out to veterans in Acton and Boxborough, letting them know about this, and assisted quite a few veterans with VA healthcare applications and submitting them to the Bedford VA Admissions and Eligibility Office. And now, it's just a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago, President Biden signed into law that effective immediately, veterans who aren't even eligible for VA healthcare and their spouses will be able to receive their shots of any age and any income through the VA. And the VA's still trying to scramble to figure out how to accommodate that. But once they give us some guidance, we'll be putting out another mailing for that as well.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, James. Great job as always. Do you mind if I close with a comment? Cheers. Well, I think that, you know, after last year's project workshop, we got feedback that people wanted, you know, more meat and more content about what each of our operations are doing. And, you know, we shared that, we discussed that, we found different ways that we could try to address that tonight. And I have to tell you that what the team did tonight was beyond my expectations for presentations. And I'm very impressed with what this, you know, I continue to be impressed with the professionals that we have working here in this organization. You heard from more than 20 people here tonight that dedicate their career to serving this community, and in their presentations you could see the passion for which they do it, and it was really exciting for me to watch. I mean, I work with them every day, but it's nice to see them on the stage, and it's nice to see them get some face time in front of the elected officials and appointed officials that are part of the community too. So I want to thank you for the opportunity, and if there are follow-up questions, we would look forward to meeting with you and discussing any of those.
Jason.
Yes, I do have two things that I would like to say. First, on the topic of timing, I find it, I fully appreciate and understand that in the land of COVID, timing is turned on its ear. But I would like us to return to regular order next year and to have this budget Saturday occur prior to the public dissemination of the town manager's budget. And I absolutely strongly suggest that that occur long before ALG is asked for consensus. I would ask that some of the other members of the Finance Committee who've been longer serving than I have, please chime in here and say that the purpose of Budget Saturday is to be part of the collaborative process, not to be at the very end after ALG consensus has been reached. And then I would like to revisit, and I can do this offline, I'd like to revisit the topic of transportation fund, because it does look like it received $420,000 worth of subsidy last year as a result of the town meeting. And therefore, I'm very cautious about leaving that money in those two funds.
Anyone else? Mr. Benson.
Yes. To the town professional staff and John, presentation is very well done. Thank you very much.
I would also like to say special thanks to the staff for the town who have stuck around for so long. I was very, very impressed with the number of people who got on and mentioned the upwards of, I think, 15, 20, somewhere above 30 years. It's really, I think, says a lot for this town and the dedication that the staff has. Thank you. Adam.
Yeah, I just want to say as a new member of FinCom that having the opportunity to listen to each department head, say a little something about their departments has been extremely helpful. This is my first time participating in this process, and I can't imagine not doing this. So I just wanted to thank everybody, and especially those department heads who I'm sure many of them have children at home and who stuck around the extra hours. I know what they're putting in, and I truly appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Benson? Oh,
yes, Jason, in terms of sequencing in the future, I think historically the town manager's budget comes out in early December, and Budget Saturday was sometime in either middle to late January, well before the ALG process got down to the hard nuts and bolts. So would that timeline be satisfactory?
The fact that this occurred after ALG consensus is definitely problematic for me. And I also would like to say that the sooner the town brings in the collaboration of the Finance Committee, whether it be both for the municipal budget and for the capital improvement plan, the better. I absolutely do congratulate the amount of work that's been done, and I would like to also say that I'm thoroughly impressed with the years of longevity of the people who have served in this town. The earlier the collaboration, the better involved for everyone. The better for everyone involved, and I fully respect that this is an unusual year with COVID, but let's get back to regular order. By no means should Budget Saturday occur after ALG consensus, and this as soon in the budget process as possible, the better. Fait accompli is no way to ask for consensus.
Mr. Noon? Steve, you're muted.
Okay. So commenting on the history, typically the town manager's budget came out around the middle of December. He made a presentation at the Board of Selectmen at the time meeting, and when the FinCom was invited, and Steve Barrett would bring up a cart with like 11 huge binders of material that would be handed out. Budget Saturday typically was early in January. I know it well because one of my daughters has an early January birthday, and there were a few times I had to cut out early to get to a party. It was also the week that Steve Ledoux had his birthday, so more than once, and Dean can probably remember this, we would have a cake for the town manager at the time. I don't know when your birthday is, John, but probably the cake wouldn't be worth having to give up a Saturday. But I would say that, yeah, the proper order of things is, make the overview presentation, give out the detail, field the questions, have the budget Saturday, and then talk about consensus.
Yeah, I mean, one of the problems we had this year with that affected the ALG process was the school budget had to be done in March for a late June town meeting because Foxborough's town meeting was in May, and I think that was the big glitch.
Throw out this year. I mean,
let's do that.
As I said, I respect the changes of COVID-19 from this year. Please let's return to regular order.
So yeah, I mean, this year everything was different. I almost asked Mark Hall to define normal town meeting when he used the term, because I've been to a lot of them. I can't define what a normal town meeting looks like, but I know what we've been having lately has not been the same as the ones in the past. The timing hasn't been the same, so everything was messed up this year in terms of timing. But there, like I said, there is an appropriate order to these things, and we ought to get back to it.
Mike.
Yeah, I won't beat a dead horse, but I just have to agree with Jason and Steve. And it's we gotta have that budget as soon as possible, certainly before ALG consensus. And we'll just leave it at that. Very good job tonight by all the town departments and the town manager. Very impressive. Thank you.
I have a question. Just because ALG has reached consensus, that I would think does not, the board, the select board and FinCom have not actually voted opinions on the exact budget. I would think if there was to be movement within the budget downward, that is still an option. Is that not the case?
Well, we're voting on John's budget next Monday night, April 12th.
Because in the past, we have seen changes to the budget. I remember specifically around the library based on reactions at a budget Saturday.
True, but respectfully, once consensus is reached, there is very little impetus to make a change.
Yeah, again, we were living through a pandemic this year. And there was a timeline from the school side to meet Foxborough's town meeting, that it moved fast.
Well, I appreciate that. I personally wanted to have a discussion about some elements of the Kelly's Corner project that were not appropriate to discuss previous to the capital plan.
You mean on the lights? The lights?
Yes.
Yeah.
I still care about the lights.
I understand.
But it sounds like that's not changeable at this point, or would that be a conversation that could still be had?
John?
So on Monday, the 12th, the board will be considering whether to approve and transmit the budget that I've recommended to the Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee has a certain number of days before town meeting before it has to make a decision on its recommendation. And so up until Monday night, the board's, I guess the budget certainly could change if I'm directed to change it by the board. We did make a change a few weeks ago, as you know, related to the dog park. I don't anticipate any other changes, but generally we still have, normally we would have town meeting yesterday. That was the plan, right? We were supposed to be at town meeting last night. And right now we still have May, still 2.5 months until town meeting. So a lot can happen, but hopefully things are settled soon.
Adam?
Yeah, I saw that somebody, a group in the town rendered a petition regarding the dog park. And I just wonder if someone could explain to me sort of what the legal ramifications of that process are, since that's an item in the budget.
Well, that petition is still being reviewed by council. It wasn't prepared by us, so we're not really, the article petitioner will have an opportunity to present its contents and its intent at a later time. That hasn't happened yet. So it's difficult for us to say right now. We will be discussing the warrant with the board, with the select board on the 26th of this month, where this article or that article will be discussed amongst the other ones that are on the preliminary warrant.
It was, if I'm correct, Adam, it was a non-binding petition, and the two asks were that the $21,000 in the municipal budget for the dog park be taken out, and then second, that the dog park be sited in an area other than the Main Street site. But it's non-binding.
Okay, so what you're saying is the town is currently not bound to act on the petition until otherwise ruled upon by some other body. Is that right?
Well, I think I think, John, the town council's reviewing the substance of the petition.
Right. So if it turns out that it's a non-binding resolution to town meeting then can decide whether or not to approve that non-binding resolution, and then it's the board's decision how to address that warrant article. So if it passes, then the board will decide whether it's going to make any changes to the plan that's in place. But just the mere fact of a town meeting vote occurring is not going to change anything. It's non-binding.
Thank you.
Jason, did I see your hand up?
Yes, and again, the risk of beating a dead horse. The purpose of the ALG process is to make sure that when consensus is reached, that there is no pressing reason for there to be future dissent. I did vote against ALG consensus. I believe I was in the extreme minority on that vote. I do think it is a very uphill climb at this point to get the two requesting authorities to make a change in the downward direction of their budget. So while technically it is absolutely true, I fear that we have no leverage at this point to object to one thing or another because we have reached consensus. I would strongly recommend that the select board and the town manager be open to your concerns, Madam Chair, but in the future, please, again, return to regular order so that the ALG process is not violated by having outstanding issues that may still be a contention at this close to town meeting.
To address that specifically, if there has been any interest in moving town meeting to this later date, I know it's been nice to have it be able to be in warm weather outside, having it this far.
This is the COVID year. I get it.
Oh no, I'm just saying that if there was any interest in doing it, I would suggest that that be strongly considered relative to the ALG process.
Thank you.
Does that cover everything for everyone? John, would you like to close yours
Sure.
first, or shall I?
If you want to go ahead first, that's fine.
Isha, do you have a motion for us?
I would love to get you a Triska.
I motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All right. Adam,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Isha,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Roland,
Aye.
Sahana,
Aye.
and I say aye. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, Joan, may I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Is there a second? Dean?
Second.
David, if you'd please call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner, Joan. I think she said aye. Okay, she says aye. I'm recognizing that as an aye. Mr. Charter.
Aye.
Mr. Benson.
Aye.